Well, good evening. Welcome to the February 8th, 2023 meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board. As usual, we are on video. We are also on Zoom, should you care to check in via Zoom. And we have a fair bit of stuff tonight, so let's get this underway. First off is public input. Is there anybody here that wants to have public input? And this is for things, general things, not things that are on our agenda or are coming up on our agenda. Seeing none? Okay, that's it for public input. Next item up is a board discussion item. The Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee has filed a warrant article, and they've offered us a presentation. I think it's included in our in the package that we have. It's on the back of the part with the agenda on it.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And, hello.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, my name is Bernard Kosicki. I'm from 24 Garrison Road. I'm on the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, and our committee has decided to propose to town meeting to adopt the specialized stretch energy code. So I'd like to spend a few minutes tonight to tell you what that's all about.
Please do.
Next slide, please. Usually the arrow, the down arrow or something will work. There's some background I've got to go over first about green communities and the stretch code. And then I'll summarize what the requirements are for the specialized code. And then, well, the last bullet is for the town meeting to decide whether or not to adopt the code, to adopt this. So next slide, please. So the first thing to get right up front is why bother with this specialized code? The point is that the specialized code encourages electrification of buildings and in new construction and extensive renovation. And that's important because the Massachusetts Clean Energy Climate Plan for 2050 assumes that 95% of all buildings will be electrified. And Chelmsford, the situation in Chelmsford is that buildings are the largest source of our emissions right now. Chelmsford also has, as you know, a net zero by 2050 goal that was passed at town meeting in 21. Now, there is a stretch code, which you may have heard of, and that was enabled by the Green Communities Act back in 2008. And the goal of that was to increase building efficiency, and it's been very successful. Massachusetts is almost #1 in the nation in building efficiency because of that. There are updates to the stretch code that occur on time periods of about every 3 years. And green communities have agreed to adopt the all the stretch code and all the updates to it as they come out. Chelmsford is a green community, so we are on track to adopt the next version of the stretch code. So that that version I call the 2024 stretch code because it becomes effective July 1 of 2024. And as I mentioned, Chelmsford's automatically going to get that. But this stretch code forms the basis for most of the specialized code. So that means we don't have to talk about all the details of the specialized code, only the differences, only the additions to the stretch code that is the specialized code. So the specialized code was enabled by Next Gen Roadmap legislation, which was signed into law back in March of 2021. It has additional requirements to encourage electrification of buildings. So the reason for the specialized code is beyond energy efficiency. It's also to encourage electrification. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. So I already mentioned that there are additional requirements to the stretch code, and it's to encourage electrification. It's important to mention that there are dual building energy pathways that are allowed under the specialized code. Specialized code doesn't prohibit fossil fuel, gas or oil, but it places some extra requirements because of that. So the dual pathways are all electric, or what DOER, the Department of Energy Resources, calls mixed fossil, or it's fossil fuels basically. Now for the all electric pathway, there generally are no changes between the specialized code and the stretch code. The exception is for buildings larger than for dwellings, multifamily apartments larger than 12,000 square feet. The building needs to follow what's called a passive house energy pathway, and that's a step up from what the stretch code required. For the mixed or fossil fuel pathway, in addition, it also shares that same requirement for the 12,000 square foot apartments, but it adds solar generation must be added to the site, and the reason for that is that the solar is looked upon as an offset for the use of the fossil fuel. So it potentially mitigates and offsets some of the fossil fuel use. The amount of solar generation is between 0.75 to 1.75 watts per square foot of floor area. And to give you a calibration on that, there are plenty of houses in Chelmsford with rooftop solar right now that exceed the upper number. So it's not a hard number to reach. The second thing in the fossil fuel pathway is that buildings must be pre-wired for appliances. Supposing you have a house you build with a gas furnace and you have a gas stove and a gas clothes dryer, let's say, and a gas hot water heater. The code says you have to bring electrical wires to those locations so that when those appliances get pulled out and refreshed with electric ones, that the wiring is already there. And as I said, this applies to new construction or extensive renovations. And by extensive renovations, I mean, or the code means if it's greater than 100% of the floor area either being renovated or added to, that's an extensive renovation. Or if it's more than 1,000 square feet, whichever of those two is the first in line, that's the one that is in effect. Next slide, please. So finally, just to summarize, the specialized code is an addition to the 2024 stretch code. It's new construction or extensive renovation, and it adds solar to the to mitigate or offset the use of greenhouse gases, and adds pre-wiring. The effective dates are, for the new stretch code, are 1 July of 2024, and the specialized stretch code, if it does pass town meeting, it would become effective January 1 of 2024. Finally, getting back to the rationale for this, building emissions are a principal contributor to total emissions. In Chelmsford, they're the #1 source of emissions. And so this seems to me, in my opinion, this seems like a sensible step in the right direction. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a step in the right direction. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention. If there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take those.
Go ahead.
No, my question is, I know you talk about residential. Is there a commercial component to this that's in the code?
Yeah,
or-
well, there is, but the commercial is it's basically the same as the stretch code.
It is. Okay.
Okay. Got a couple of little detail questions perhaps you could help with. First of all, when you say pre-wiring, does that assume installation of electrical service to support that wiring, or is it just the wiring itself? I mean, that is, if you have to put an addition on and you have to pre-wire
Yeah.
for all kinds of electric stuff, electric heat in particular, and heat
Yeah.
pumps, are you required also to upgrade the electrical service at that point?
You mean, do you have to have a bigger panel, for
Yeah.
example?
Well, you might have to have a bigger panel just because you got more wires.
Yeah, I think that the bigger panel.
But do you have to have a bigger wire brought into the house, is the question,
Because
in order
Oh.
to support that? I mean, that's expensive.
and it's also a bit
The house is
problematic
gonna-
with National
The house is
Grid.
going to have if it's a new house, it's going to have a new wire anyway. So that part of it,
Well, yeah, my understanding is there have been some problems with larger electrical services getting up around 400 amp.
yeah.
And, if you've got a requirement
can't
that says
support
you
it.
have to do this, and you have a National Grid that can't install it because they haven't got the power on the street, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I put in a heat pump in my house last fall, and 200 amp is fine.
Okay,
So for the size of the house that I have. Now, for a large commercial building, obviously that's not the case. But for a standard, 2,000 square foot house or so, I don't see a problem with 200 amp. But I'm not an expert, so I would defer
Many houses
to
have 100
someone.
well, I would say, I live in
A
a
lot of
big,
the old houses that have 100 amp service.
Many.
yeah,
My
many,
house used to have 100 amp service. I upgraded it to 200.
yeah. Yeah, because I've got a 200, but I'm going to guess I would need a 300.
I'll add some comments. In a conversation with, my name is Badri Upiyapan, if you don't know me.
Yeah, we know you.
Yeah, we know.
I think National Grid, when we had a conversation about a year ago, give or take, and we asked them about electrification and how they're monitoring the circuits and capacity and stuff, their technical engineering folks assured us that they are monitoring demand and are able to meet as the demand goes up.
Okay.
And therefore, that's a promise. Promise may be different from what the reality happens. That's quite possible.
yeah, 'cause I-
But the
yeah.
expectation would be if the state has mandated it, National Grid or Eversource for that matter,
Yeah.
will be bound to provide that service through to the streets
Okay,
somehow.
well, I
or
hope so.
another.
'Cause I have a couple of electrician friends who tell me they've had a little bit of trouble of late. so-
It may be delayed.
Yeah,
It may be delayed, or slow, but I would assume, because otherwise, there is no, the push and pull is
Yeah.
not there, so to speak. And yes, in a larger scale of things, we do acknowledge that there is a lack of grid capacity to bring in new power sources and stuff, but that is something that the state and others will have to work through in terms of the deployment cycle.
good,
So,
okay. Thank you. More questions?
Yeah, just for, if you don't mind, I've got a
Go-
couple of
go
questions.
right
just
ahead.
from a understanding. So this is a specialized code. So this means bringing it to town meeting approves it, then all new construction, just so I just want to make sure I understand what's, in front of me. All new construction needs to have the solar, and pre-wiring for heating electric appliances. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Like, is
only,
that-
only if you're going to put a gas or oil furnace in, are you required to put solar in.
Okay,
If you don't, if you stick with all electric, then they don't require that.
okay, so, all right. And then adding pre-wiring for heating electric appliances. Okay, I might be really dumb here, but isn't that already, like, when you do it?
No, that's actually a very substantial cost to run
Yeah.
that gauge wire to
So it's a
the
different type of
dryer.
wire.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
heavier gauge wire. It
Okay.
draws more amperage.
What do you?
Yeah,
talk
these
about?
are,
Okay.
these are
30
220
40
volt
amp,
devices
40, some are
on high
50.
amperage.
Some
So this-
ovens are
it's
50,
Fat
some,
wires.
some dryers are 50 also.
It's pretty
Yeah.
heavy. It's a lot of copper.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
6 gauge copper
Yeah.
wire.
But if I'm, like, if I'm
Sometimes
building a new
four.
house.
Price
am I
of
gonna
copper
want
now
this-
is through the
Am
roof.
I going to be putting this in anyways? Like, if I'm building new
Uh-uh.
construction?
Not if they're putting gas appliances in.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're going to have to change eventually down the road. So,
Like,
so
if I'm-
if someone's
I-
gonna build a new home, they're gonna have the duplicate
Like,
services.
yeah, because this is for new renovate, like, I'm thinking, this is new, right? And I'm gonna build a new house, what, like, I would obviously put in the higher, well, electrical box, right?
Yeah.
Because I've got,
Maybe.
like, if you're gonna go through the whole expense of building something new.
As the
Yeah.
panels get more
Yeah.
amperage, they get larger,
Yeah, and more
physically
expensive.
larger.
And you want the latest appliances, right? And
Yeah,
you want
but
the
the-
latest, yeah, like, okay, I just wanted to understand.
But it's basically either requiring all electric, which is gonna be heat pumps, or it's requiring that they pre-wire for everything that isn't electric. Pre-wire an electric option for everything that isn't electric.
Yeah.
And, I mean, to me, I just think that this, while it's a good thing to do,
It's overreach.
it's too early to do it. That we don't have the heating technology to keep up with last Friday night.
Couple days a
and-
year, it doesn't keep up.
A couple days a year, it's going to freeze your pipes if you don't have a secondary fossil fuel system. And, maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we'll have heat pumps that actually work at those temperatures. But today they don't.
I think we have a comment here.
And the electric company's saying, expect brownouts. So,
So I have a, when I had my heat pump put in, they took away the oil furnace, so I've got nothing but electric in the house right now. So it was a great experiment last Friday night to see what would
was.
happen. I've got a electrical backup to the heat pump, which is a resistive heater
Yeah.
that's on the outside, that's after the heat pump. So in case the heat pump, runs out of gas, there's an electrical heater. So I turned off that heater, and I waited until 10 o'clock at night, and the temperature went down and down to -6. And I had dropped 1 degree in the house from 69 to 68, with the heat pump only running at that point. So I turned on the heater overnight, and in the morning, it had gone down. It was probably down to -10 or so. And the house was a couple degrees under the set point on the thermostat, but the extra electric heater, I mean, I could have gotten a larger electric heater that would have handled it, but for a once in 20-year thing, I thought that was good enough.
Okay.
So I think that the idea that's circulating that says that heat pumps are not there yet is wrong. In Norway, half of the houses have heat pumps only. And our climate is not anywhere near what Norway's is.
and what do they have for R value of insulations in Norway?
What do they have for what?
What do they have for the R value of their insulations in Norway?
They probably.
That's the real key, is how much are you
Yeah,
losing that
well,
you have?
the new house, the new houses, we're talking about new construction with this code, and those new houses are going to be much better insulated than your house is right now, even by the stretch
Anything's better
code.
insulated than my house
And,
is now.
And in fact, if you got a passive house insulation, you almost wouldn't need anything Even a small heat pump would do the job.
Okay.
I want to add some comments to that. Just this last week, I think Maine has shown several homes with heat pump technology were able to withstand the Arctic blasts, and there is a lot of campaign by the propane and oil companies to try and say that this is not possible to heat and that there is climate technology does not exist. Number one. Number two, even in Massachusetts, with heat pump, you are allowed to have a secondary fossil fuel for emergency peaking service.
Okay.
That is important. Critical to this point of this opt-in specialized stretch code is that it does bring in high R values and better construction.
Yeah.
This is actually setting a precedent in the marketplace for demand and for the services to be able to do something at a higher level of standard. So when renovations and renewals or, flips happen over time, the expectation and hope is that this drives that standard slowly up a little bit and continues to move that forward. Energy efficiency and thermal insulation is your number one aspect that has to be paid attention to in the whole context. So I think this is going to try and drive change over the next 50 years. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Now, I guess technically this is not what we call a public hearing.
Just information
This is just informational
to the board. The board normally doesn't make recommendations to town meeting on non-zoning
on
items.
non-zoning, but this is very interesting to see. And I see one familiar face that looks like he'd like to say something.
No, I don't want to.
And I know him to be a pretty good engineer, so,
I want to ask a question,
Yeah.
because, if anybody in precinct 7 where I'm from sees this meeting, they're going to ask me questions. So I figured now's my chance to maybe ask
Yeah.
a question, because from the material that I saw presented there, it sounds like the directive is to go all electric in homes. And I know some people are going to say, don't want to do that, never going to do that. I'll never cook on an electric stove because it doesn't cook well, it's got issues. So the question is, can you have an electric stove, a gas stove, a gas dryer, and gas heat, and still have this in the same new house?
yeah.
You need to put on
So,
two things, right?
Yeah, just as long as you wire it.
yeah, so I think the question was, is the house classified as a fossil fuel house, even if you only have a gas stove? Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, over here. So some people prefer gas dryers, and I know
Yeah.
people I know prefer gas cooking far in excess of electric cooking. In a new house, can they install the gas appliances?
So you would say, so your question is, could they install a gas stove but an electric heat pump? Is that what?
Well, you can have an electric heat pump, that's fine.
Well, if the, so, I
But
mean,
if people want to have a gas stove.
yeah, I mean, yes,
Gas
yes, the
dryer,
answer is yes.
and maybe even gas
Yeah.
heat, do they have the option, or is this
Sure.
excluding it?
Yeah, so, I guess I wasn't very clear. The fossil fuel pathway allows for all of your appliances to be gas if you want them. A gas dryer, gas stove, gas furnace, gas hot water heater.
Gas cooking.
Yeah, but you have to bring wires to all of those spots. So then in the future, when you pull them out, replace them with electric, the wires will be
Have to
there.
replace them with electric?
Yeah, that's the question. Do you have to replace them with what? So
Well, I mean,
Need
no,
to be
I
prepped.
I don't foresee,
Okay.
Because they may be able, the technology may be able to even use your solar panels to, I don't know, to drive the gas, who knows, right? Like, I don't know what I guess that's what they're saying.
So this is just giving the
Option.
consumer an option.
yeah,
To have both.
The control that the government is putting upon the new homes is you have to wire them.
Yeah,
Whatever
that's
that
it, yeah,
costs.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, the town of Chelmsford, that would be a
bring
straight-up
solar.
town of Chelmsford.
yeah.
And bring solar.
Okay.
And what?
And bring
solar.
solar.
And put solar
Solar
in,
panels are the big
and
kicker.
install solar.
Yeah.
I don't
To
understand.
make people go all electric, that's dangerous, because now you're gonna have a monopoly. You've got an electric company, one electric company.
Okay, that's, yeah.
So I missed the solar part?
True.
So
Yeah, you did.
I did miss it. Yeah, so-
Yeah.
So the houses must have solar on the roof.
If you
If
bring
they're
gas.
not all electric, they have to have solar somewhere.
Thank you,
Okay,
because that would be
Thanks.
unacceptable to a lot of people.
okay. Very good. Well,
Can you clarify one thing? I wanna
Yeah,
ask
go
one more
ahead.
question. So you're asking us to move it up to, the town meeting to move it up to January, but as of July of '24, it's the whole state of Massachusetts, right?
No, it's two different
Or is it
acts.
just
So
Chelmsford?
there's
No, the
there's two different-
specialized code
two
would
Two
different
different
codes.
codes here.
Right,
One is the stretch code.
yeah,
That's the one that we get automatically as a green community.
yep.
And that becomes effective 1 July of 2024.
Okay.
But we're not required to implement the stretch code unless we vote it in.
No, the
No,
specialized.
stretch code we get
I'm sorry, the
automatically.
specialized code
The
unless we vote it
specialized
in.
code has to be approved at town meeting.
okay.
Okay,
So only
so
if
the
it's
stretch
approved.
code's automatic, but the specialized code, we have to vote in if we want it.
That's right.
What does the stretch code stipulate?
All right.
Wait a minute,
That's the
so now I'm
insulation
confused.
and whatnot.
What's the difference between the stretch code and the specialized? Because it looks like, to your point, 6 months. Are they the same thing?
No.
No?
So the stretch code is a update of all the stretch codes we've had up till now. We've been getting them since 2008 in Chelmsford, since we're a green community. And the specialized code is one step above that, which has an additional aim of encouraging electrification.
Okay, so that's what this,
That's what this,
Yeah.
that's the one that has to be voted in.
okay.
Stretch codes, we get automatically, we don't have to do anything.
Did we vote in the stretch code?
No, that's a,
Well, we voted to become a green community,
And that, in essence,
yeah. and
required
this
us to adopt the stretch codes?
Requires, all green communities must adopt the stretch code.
okay. Well, that's good. We've got our information. Know a lot more about this than I did. So, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was, all right. Now we come to administrative items.
May I suggest we jump to the zoning public hearing since,
Well, I want to take care of at least the one that needs to be moved. The matter on Kidder Road is going out to March 8th. Is that correct?
I'll look for a motion to continue to March 8th.
Yep. Do I have such a
Motion to continue to March 8th.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
I won't be here March 8th.
Okay, but you can still vote.
you can say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Are you guys here because you didn't want it to be continued, or you did?
Yeah.
They just keep postponing it and postponing
Yeah.
it.
Well, we'll find out what's underneath this. Okay,
Just dragging it.
now your suggestion is we do the public,
The attorney wanted to be here and couldn't, so we're postponed again. Okay.
so
So
we're
March
going to,
March
All
8th.
right.
And, okay.
yeah.
Do we have, was there a motion on that?
Yes,
Yeah,
there
there's a
was.
motion, second and approved.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, what I was suggesting is skipping to the zoning public hearing since Paul Haverty, town council, is here with us.
Okay, let's do that. That's item 1 under continued public hearings.
Yeah.
Then we'll jump back and we'll finish up the administrative.
And Brian Reedy, the chair of the ZBA, is also here with us.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Thank you. You're on.
Brian's going to start.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board, my name is Brian Reedy. I'm currently Chairman of the Chelmsford Board of Appeals. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I'm here this evening to discuss 2 parallel changes in the zoning bylaws, specifically Section 195-9, conformity required, reduction of dimensional requirements. The 2 changes as presented would increase the percentage of allowable building coverage in an RB district, which are single-family homes, and the RC district, which are 2-family homes. Currently, the maximum building coverage is 15%. Allowing this change would increase the allowable building coverage to 21%. As an example, a 10,000 square foot lot in the RB district today could have an allowable lot coverage of 1,500 square feet. This would increase to 2,100 square feet, 600 feet. In an RC zone, the 2-family, the increase would be more restrictive. Currently, on a similar 10,000 square foot lot, you could have a maximum lot coverage of 2,100 square feet, and this would increase to 2,600 square feet. The FAR, that's the floor area ratio, would also allow for an in-kind increase related to lot coverage. As the lot coverage increases, the FAR increases. It's not how it's done now, but it's how it would be done. The reason these changes is that over the past year, the zoning board, has been forced to deny or amend several applications that didn't necessarily require dimensional relief. The existing bylaws have been in place since 1963, and times have changed. Applications, especially since the advent of COVID, have become more use-specific. The requests for in-law apartments, home offices, and garages have increased. These changes would allow the zoning board to grant in relief the form of a special permit as opposed to a variance. These projects would meet the requirements of dimensional setbacks as noted in 195-9. When granting a variance, the zoning board is held to the three specific tenets: lot shape, soil conditions, and topography. Lot coverage and floor area do not trigger a variance. The goal is to allow, with consideration, the issuance of a special permit instead of a variance. The board would have the full discretion in granting these permits, including public hearings and the notification of abutters. I would note that in the last year, this has affected 3 applications. In all 3 cases, the board was unable to grant relief to the applicants. The board felt that granting the variance would be in violation, although the neighborhood and the board supported the project. We were still unable to grant relief. We do not think these changes will result in a larger volume of applicants, as the changes affect very few projects. As a board, we do feel the change would allow us more freedom in approving projects that are not detrimental to the public good and would not deviate from the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaws. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one, and it's based on some public comment that I've gotten by email, which I think is misplaced and perhaps a little incorrect, but I want to drill down on it a bit. There are some who are believing that this would allow two-family houses on properties that otherwise, on which otherwise two families are not allowed. And I want to understand.
There would not be any avenue for that in this
Because I
change.
didn't see any changes here that changed
Yeah,
the
I mean, very simply-
underlying rules for RB and RC.
An RB district remains an RB district, an RC district is an RC district, and there's no,
Yeah, and then RB has, I
place for
think,
that.
only 2 very limited exceptions for multifamily. One, the historical, and the other, the in-law apartments. That's about it.
right,
Okay.
How many, you said you had 3 in the last year, how many have you had in the last 3 years? Is this, like, had you had to deny?
there's very few. I don't know the answer to the last few years. I would say it really became a problem this year. It's even possible that we didn't have any before that. The year before was very COVID-driven. We didn't really do a lot. I don't know the answer to that. We don't do this a lot. It's pretty rare.
So Brian, can I ask you a question? That about watching one of your meetings, I watched the past 3 meetings on how this all developed. And the question I have is that your last meeting, the recommendation was that you wanted to increase the RB to 40%.
That's correct.
30, is that in here?
It is. That's how that works out with the examples I gave.
You didn't mention the percentages.
So the RB that's in place since 1963.
Yeah.
And it varies per lot size, of course. The 40K is 6,000, but it's still 15%. 30K is 45.
It's on the handout.
Skipping down to 7,500 is 1,125 square feet. But again, it's all 15%.
15%, yeah.
So that 15% now goes up 6% to 21%. But 6% is 40% of 15.
Yeah.
So that's where the 40% comes from. I think this is a little easier to understand, but we are increasing
By 6%.
the allowance by 40% in RB and increasing it by 40%, I'm sorry, by 20% in the RC.
30 in the RC.
30%.
I'm sorry, Evan, where does it say 40 and 30%?
On number 3, B3.
He's looking at a different sheet.
Am I looking at this sheet here?
B3 in your handout.
Here, do you have this?
You're looking for
The
this.
previous-
second to
the
last
previous
page.
And then the following page gives examples of it.
6 is 40% of 15.
Yeah.
So,
That's
so-
confusing.
so I gather what you would like us to do is give a planning board thumbs up for the purposes of
If
town
that's
meeting.
your, I mean, this is certainly for discussion.
Yeah.
This is what we felt was best. We might be a little more versed in it than the planning board, but
Yeah, you probably
Yeah.
are for this.
it's a
for
pretty
the
minor change. It does allow us freedom. The real trick, it allows us to grant a special permit as opposed to a variance,
Right.
which we just can't grant. I mean, there's
So-
no avenue to
Not
do
not
that.
without something in the regs, yeah.
But does this now change, like if someone has a 40,000 square foot house and their proposed coverage is 8,400, like where does, like, does it now allow, like, if you don't go up to the 8,400, if you just go up to like I don't know.
What do
7,000?
you mean?
Like,
If you're in an RB zoning district.
Yeah.
Right now,
you can only go up to 6,
you.
6,000.
Lot coverage, yes.
6,000.
Yes, that would be like a large ranch.
It's the footprint of every building
Okay,
on the
Yep,
property.
I get that. So now, by changing this, if I put a 7,000 square foot lot coverage, or what, do I go in front of a ZBA? Or do I
Yeah.
go in
Yes.
front of-
For a special
You have
permit.
to,
Special
regardless?
permit now, they're
Yes.
changing
Yeah,
it.
you're still going to appear, you still need to notify the abutters and the abutters. You still need to present, and the board still has a discretion to approve or deny based on, I think there were 4 tenants that we had put together.
Kind of like we have.
Yeah.
Right, they have their criteria, we have 5, they have 4.
Right. Adjacent
Do no
properties
harm.
would not be adversely impacted. The reduced dimensions would not be detrimental to the public good and would not substantially deviate from the intent or purpose of this zoning bylaw. And any lot reduced under this section may not be further reduced or subdivided.
Right.
So
Time
there's
only.
protections in place that we don't have control over, and then there's some freedom that we do have.
Yeah.
That we can issue a special permit, but we're not obligated to by any means. We can always deny a special permit.
I know there was a discussion on the 100%, going up 100%, because you mentioned you put a second floor on a ranch, it's automatically FAR is 100%.
Right, so we've really removed the FAR and gone to lot coverage.
Just lot coverage.
Because of that very problem. It couldn't
So
do
wait a minute.
both.
But I did that.
When Brian's referring to removing provision number 4
Yep.
in the
Yeah.
proposed article, it's not removing FAR. What the zoning board is proposing is that there not be a need for a cap on increasing the FAR. The zoning board wants the ability to review on a case-by-case basis and have the ability to increase the FAR accordingly. So it's a tiered process. You have setbacks. That's your first constraint. Then you have building lot coverage is your second constraint. The zoning board controls both of those. If the zoning board in the neighborhood is inclined to deviate or provide flexibility for the setbacks and the lot coverage, well, then what the zoning board is saying, the FAR basically falls into place.
If you have.
You can't prescribe the FAR until you know what your setbacks are and what your building coverage is going to be.
I got you.
But
I
but
don't
you
know.
do know that let's say a 10,000 square foot lot, you're only allowed 1,500 feet of floor area. So if you put a second floor on it, we've reached 3,000 feet. If you put a third floor, you're only allowed half a floor. So now we're at 4,500 feet, and that would be the max on 3 levels, 2.5. You couldn't have more than that, because then you're in violation of the zoning law.
Based upon the current FAR.
So, because I did this, right? I had a ranch, and I put a
Just
whole
sort of gets
second floor,
duplicitous
and I
if you-
didn't
if
have to
you
go
have
through
a
anything
second
because I had all
restriction.
the, like,
That's
Red
correct.
land.
but I didn't have that much land. I mean, I live in East Chelmsford. It's not like I had that much land.
So
But, like, so I guess I'm struggling here to understand the need for this,
and I'll explain.
because changing our zoning for 3 applicants in the last year, to me, is not statistically something that may affect everybody else.
Sure. So as I mentioned to the zoning board, the last couple of meetings, and I mentioned to the planning board, while the zoning board has seen 3 in the last year, the reason for that is is directly related to a change in commissioners. As commissioners come in and commissioners go out, commissioners have different ways of interpretation, and they focus on different provisions of the zoning bylaw. So moving forward, I can guarantee you that there will be significantly more than 3 over a 12-month period that get captured based upon the commissioner's new review and interpretation.
Okay, but I'd like to wait till we get to a significantly
You know what, I
important
keep
number.
having
Even
difficulty
yours
hearing
might
you,
not have been
Anita.
captured
Okay, but what I'm saying is, well, I
because
doubt
of the
it, but
leniency of the last.
I get it. Mine, but I like to get to before we change the zoning for everybody and run into unintended consequences, I like to get to a statistical significance of really seeing this. I mean, to me, 3 is changing
Well,
zoning for 3.
I gave you two
So what you're
examples.
saying is that you want to see real hardship across the
I
community
want to see
before you
real
would consider
need.
changing
Yeah, because there
the,
could be unintended consequences here.
I mean, the neighbors still get to.
neighbors have a say in
they
the
still
special
get
permit.
to-
the neighbors still get a say.
Technically not,
As does the board.
right?
Yeah.
I considered bringing you an example that came before us, and I just didn't
I have
feel it was
both of them.
fair. You can do it, but I think, singling someone out is a little,
No,
it wasn't right. But what they wanted to do was add 200 feet, which, as you know, is half a garage. If there wasn't a garage, it was a space. And then above that, they wanted to put 200 feet and continue onto their existing house for 2 home offices. Both the wife and the husband are now working from home. He said, we have kids. We have nowhere to have a home office. And if we don't do this, we have to move. And, one lady is crying and she doesn't want to move. And it was just really hard to tell her we can't help you. And I think if you had seen it, you would understand the need and the hardship of doing that. I mean, working from home is not what it was just 3 years ago. It's they needed 2 offices, one for the husband, one for the wife, and
I get that, but I just, there are plenty of people out there, like, my neighbor actually cut her house in half and came in front of the ZBA and built a whole nother half. And what I liked about it was the fact that we did not, there's privacy. I was concerned about her overlooking into my lawn and, what have you, and we don't. Because of our zoning, we have that privacy, so that protected me. And now I have a concern that, yes, I understand that need, but there's a whole bunch of other needs for people who, buy their house, have a certain expectation of privacy, and,
Yeah, but the buffers aren't changing.
Yeah.
but now you have
How is your
someone higher who can be
You would
looking
have the
in,
right to
right? Like,
speak
doesn't
at
cover the
the
tree, or, right, like,
Board of
now you have
Appeals
it,
meeting.
like,
I don't know
Again,
if
I
you
mean, I
support the
just would
idea
like
or
to
are just
see this
concerned
more
about, which we considered at
demand
length,
for it
unintended
before.
consequences. I personally didn't find any. I didn't say, oh, this is a situation where someone could take advantage of it. Now, that's not to say that can't happen. As you know, the unintended is the key word there. We did not find any that concerned us, but,
Yeah.
people are definitely willing to look for any loophole that gets them an advantage. It's
Yeah.
human nature.
I
Thanks.
personally
Yeah.
think that an increase from 15 to 21, if we're going to talk about that,
Yeah.
discuss it, I guess maybe it's not the time. But, I mean, that seems like a pretty modest increase to give homeowners flexibility to modify their own home. I think for us to be,
Well,
arbitrarily sticking to numbers that made more sense 70 years ago, or,
well, I think we've got most of the information about this on the table at this point.
Yes, I
And-
can leave
yeah.
it to I'm going to hang around for it. If you have further questions, feel free.
I can ask one
You know,
more
as
question.
as I mentioned,
ahead.
Paul Haverty's on Zoom as well.
Yeah.
Ryan, just because I was interested in watching the meetings. What issues have you had with RC? It's been primarily from here.
RC is almost secondary to this. RB is the ones we've come up against most, the single families. I don't know what this is going to get you for an RC that's really helpful. Remember, you're going to end up with an RC in a 10,000 square foot lot, you get 2,100. You have a 2-family. That's 1,050 per side.
I did
A
provide.
garage is
I provided
576
Third
square
Street,
feet.
which was in front of the board, March of '22.
They were denied, I believe.
Yeah, it was a 3-2 denial. So it gives you a sense as to where the board is trying to go when they work with applicants. But you had 2 members who legally were not willing to grant the variance.
Yeah, and for understandable
So,
reasons.
so,
yeah.
so, so the
But
board.
we had a
the board-
majority, and they did not prevail,
Right,
which is
so
frustrating.
when this came
Way
to
it
a
is.
head a couple of months ago with the single family, the example Brian's referring to, you had a similar situation, but it was then where I engage with the board, and, the board, the full board supports these because they want to provide an opportunity for homeowners to make a proposal that works for them and provide a forum to have a conversation with the neighborhood and the discretion to approve or modify.
Well, I think what we've got here, first of all, let me say that the Board of Appeals is the area of expertise in these areas. You do far more of the single family and the things of the variances much more than we do, and that's your area of expertise. They've asked for this. It seems reasonable in its face, and I get the impression that they've done their homework.
I think you need to look at their last 3 meetings.
Yeah, I was at one
The
of them.
entire board was all over the place until they talked about it. They were all came from different opinions. One wanted no limit. The gentleman over here wanted put some kind of limit. That's how you ended up at 40. So I think, that's one question I wanted to find out is how this all developed. Because I watched Evan present it on December 9th, early in December, and then he was with you guys again in January.
Yep.
Notice already went out regarding it.
Yes.
And then watching Becky talk about, we need to discuss this for the planning board. And we didn't make this recommendation. So I know you guys are, and I know you're trying to solve
I
the
think we're
problem with
looking
the
for
town. I'm not trying
support
to
at
create
the
any.
town
No,
meeting, which I
this-
think you present to them.
This
that correct?
Rainbow Ave, which I presented to you several times, it's in your packet, is the single family that Brian's referring to. That property owner was engaged with the office for months. He was engaged with the zoning board for months. And between the zoning board, myself, and Jose Negron, the building commissioner, and the applicant, we were trying to figure out. And they revised their plan a couple times, but they still, as Brian indicated, still had a minimum need. So I follow the zoning board, and I try to proactively engage where I see trends. And to Anita's point, this is going to come to a head.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we're better as a town to be proactive when it comes to working with our single-family homeowners, particularly based upon the trends that we've talked about during COVID and accelerating during COVID. So the zoning board was struggling. I went to them at one of these meetings and said, we can revise the zoning. Let me come up with a proposal, which I did. I presented to them. It then went to the planning board.
And here it is.
Last meeting, Anita expressed concerns about, so then we went back to the zoning board.
So back to Anita's point. You're making this change for the whole town for one resident.
No.
Well, there's a few.
there's-
It was
three-
Sylvan Street and.
There's 3
and-
cases that the zoning board's aware of over the last year where this would solve those problems. And as Brian indicated, the majority of the board voted for those. A couple members were not willing to go for the variance. What I'm telling you, and I think Brian can speak to this, and Jose Negron certainly can, is that this is going to be a trend that increases.
Yeah,
This
I'd
is
like to
gonna
do a
continue.
poll.
it is, I agree.
Like, and answer.
Can you
citizens
refresh
whether
me
or
about
not-
the Rainbow or the Sylvan? Like, what were they trying to do? And in what way was it not, I guess I should have.
Yeah, it's in your packet.
It's right here.
In your packet. Rainbow's a single family.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry.
When you see it, you're kind of going to go, why can't you do this? Because it is, literally, the footprint expands by 200 feet. As I said, that's less than half a garage or a one-bay garage.
They were proposing is a one-bay garage and an in-law. So it's an RB zoning, but it's only on 10,700 square feet. So what comes to mind is, most of us would think RB is 20,000 or 30,000. You have hundreds of lots that are 10,000 square feet in the RB.
So they're very restricted.
Yeah, so we've looked at that before
Yes.
in terms of lot sizes, and we think of ourselves as a town of 1-acre lots. But the fact is, we're not.
Correct. I
We
think 80%
we really
are
have
undersized.
a very small percentage of our RB that is conforming
So the-
lots,
what's
40,000 or
important about-
more. And that's where this whole thing comes into play, is that because the lots are smaller, when you're measuring it on a percentage scale, it really limits the size of a building you can put on it, or buildings you can put on it.
So this example and then the two-family example are prototypical of the situations that are out there.
Well,
So-
what if we
so
said it
while-
only?
So I
it
only
was-
have a handful over the last year. This is what the zoning board and Jose are dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
And this is only for the non-conforming, existing non-conforming lots.
Correct.
Okay.
So what if we, but this bylaw change is gonna affect all lots, right?
It's going to affect any existing single or two-family. Some single-family are in the IA zoning district.
Yeah, but what if we said if it's only really a problem for the smaller lots because that's so restrictive on those?
Well, it essentially says that. It says it's only applicable to pre-existing non-conforming lots and
Okay,
structures.
Gotcha.
So if it's 40,000 or above for
Doesn't matter.
RB, or
If you're-
20,000 or
right.
above for
Got it,
RC,
okay.
it's not applicable.
I would make a recommendation that we approve it for just the RB, and we leave the RC the way it is.
I'd be perfectly okay
I
with
would
that.
be happier with that, but I would still not. I still have
I
a
mean,
concern.
I can understand the.
If I may,
Go ahead.
as I said, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of single-family homes in the RA, RC, RM, and CA. There are also dozens, if not hundreds, of single-family homes in the IA, in this commercial districts. The ones that have low lot area, low building coverage are RA at 10, RB at 15, RC at 20, RM is 15, and CA is 15. CA is across the Westlands. There are single-family homes in there. So while RB will address a significant portion of them, you're arbitrarily leaving out hundreds, if not thousands, of other scenarios.
This was, RB and RC was the only two zones discussed by the zoning
Right, and
board.
that's all that's
The
in there.
the reason, yes, but as proposed, it applies to any single and two-family. It's not zoning district-specific. RB and RC.
You guys are for that. As a committee and a board, you're 100% all
I'm
the
listening to
zones.
Evan's point, and it's concerning, but, I mean,
It's concerning, and you're the
the
chief.
problems we had were in RB specifically.
Your
And
current,
C, I think, is important to address, because, an RC doesn't have to be a two-family either.
No,
It
correct.
allows for a two-family, but
Have
there
a
are
line.
many, many single families in the RC district that may have the same problem. You can become an in-law without becoming a two-family, but I think what you're gonna do is force those people to become two families as opposed to an in-law, because you don't have the area. So you can make it a two-family.
So if the issue we're having is an RB, then I think we need to change this so it only addresses RB. I have a concern that this is too broad.
at that point, I wouldn't do it, because then you're excluding, you're arbitrarily
But, like,
excluding.
if-
No, I'm okay with it, but literally, I listened to all
Let me just
all the
clarify.
meetings, and
The
they didn't discuss
reason
this.
that the zoning board focused on the RB and RC is that's 90% of what they see.
But they didn't discuss it.
They didn't discuss what?
They're making a recommendation to the planning board.
Because it wasn't-
But
now
they
let me
did
ex-
not discuss all zones.
Let me
They only
explain why.
discussed two.
Let me explain why. Because the current pre-existing non-conforming provisions
Yes.
apply to all single and two-family. This
Okay.
section 195-9 already applies to any single or two-family in the town, regardless of RB or RC. So that's the starting point.
Or IA.
It applies, if there's a,
It's
if
very
there's a,
confusing. It's all,
Monmouth,
this is being.
zoning is
Yeah, I
complicated
know
and
that,
and
but the way this is
confusing.
being delivered to us is very, very confusing. And maybe I'm the only one here that's confused, but I watched all those meetings, and they didn't discuss, there was one person that said, we're doing this all against all, one lady that sat right over there in the corner, she said, oh, we're doing this for all zones. And then there was like, no, it was RC and RB.
There was a lot of confusion
So
there, yes.
if they're confused, we're confused, why are we taking this to town meeting?
Well,
You seem to be the only one that knows
I-
about this whole thing, you and the building committee.
I've been emailing with the board. They got this with my clarifications. A handful of them replied saying, thank you for the clarification, it makes sense. I've met with Brian, we've worked with council, and this is what's evolved here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to hear me say, and I don't think you're going to hear Brian say, that every zoning board member understands there are some new members there. And yes, there was a lot of confusion in that recent meeting. You have members who believe that, that the historical chart that we talked about from 2019 means that you don't have to go to the zoning board at all. But, you know, staff, my engagement is on an as-needed basis.
No, I agree.
I mean, you know, otherwise we'd still be at the zoning
So
board.
you're going to present this.
Well, we're going to continue to work with Brian.
Right.
Yeah.
The planning board is required to give a recommendation to town meeting.
Right, I agree.
Ideally, the planning board would take a lead or a partnership with the zoning board. But I think Brian, myself, and, you know, and Paul are capable of
Yeah.
continuing the presentation. Remember, it's got to go to FinCom, it's got to go to Select Board.
Right.
You know, what we haven't done is, you know, we haven't asked the attorneys or the applicants who have been struggling in front of the zoning board to come to you yet. I mean, we can certainly do that, so you can hear directly from real people and real attorneys who are trying to provide, you know, trying to get an approval through the zoning board. I provided you the examples because they're public record.
And we've heard all about
But we
this,
haven't
right.
taken a survey either. We haven't brought in, you know, like, we haven't asked all the other residents in town how they feel. Like, that's, like.
But we don't do
The
that.
town
I-
meeting is.
I
for
understand that,
representative
but
town
that's
government.
what, like, again, I have a real issue that we have, like, while I feel for these people, and I certainly
It's
understand.
not these people, it's thousands of homes. It's 80% of the homes in
Okay, well, then
town.
I would
So
like
what's
to
the
understand.
consequences of this? That's my
Yeah.
question.
The
It
consequences
sounds
are
like there's
very,
something coming that
the
we don't know yet.
consequences are very simple. Increasingly, you're going to have people engaging with town hall, particularly the building commissioner.
Okay.
After they prepare some plans, and they're told, you have to go to the zoning board, and you need a variance. And we already know, because staff tells these people, if you don't have a legal, real hardship, the zoning board is not inclined to approve it. What that means for the average homeowner is, once you reach the max building coverage, or FAR, you're done. The town is basically saying, you are not allowed to increase the size of your home. If you want a garage and you don't have one, too bad. If you want to put a second floor in your house, or an in-law, or studies, as soon as you reach those caps, you're done.
Yeah.
So either decide to live there, or move to a different house, or move to a different
Well,
town. That's the message, that's what we're talking about.
I think it makes eminently good sense to engage the Board of Appeals to make exactly those kinds of decisions. That's what they do, and they do a
I
pretty
feel
good
we're
job
not
of it.
giving up any control.
Yeah.
What we can't do right now is allow anything, because we cannot grant a variance
Yeah, unless
without
it's.
the soil conditions, the topography, or the lot shape.
not that big a
That's the only reason we can
Right.
issue a variance. With a special permit, we get permission to decide, and we're not giving up any rights to that whatsoever. We're going to make the same decision based on the, you know, no precedent, what's in front of us and what's decided is right. The needs of the abutters are considered. A variance allows for none of that.
I think Paul
Special
Haverty, did you
permit.
want to
Yeah,
say something,
I would
Paul?
say, I would ask Paul, I mean, I can tell you what the differences are in the requirements between a special permit and a variance, but you might not believe me, you'll probably believe Paul when he says
I
it.
like to, like, what I would like for information when presenting something like this is I'd like to know what, like, other comparable towns are doing, how much they allow. So when this is presented, and you say, we want Chelmsford to do this, be helpful to say, these are the towns, are
Yeah.
comparable
It's a good
towns,
way
and
to
this
look
is
at
what
it.
they're doing. I like to also
I think you're going to find a
understand-
wide gambit, but we didn't
But-
look, so I didn't look personally. so
But that's what I
a thought.
want, like, I don't want to be making a decision, like, here's the information, this is all you get, and then make a decision right here. Like, it sounds good, but I need to have.
I feel we're not
information.
giving up any of our rights as a zoning board.
I get it.
We're not saying, oh, whatever you guys do is fine. We still have the whole process, the same as a variance. The only thing we can do is approve.
But
If
I
it's a
like to know what
variance, we
other towns
cannot
around
approve
us are
it.
doing, you know, from, you know, Drake, Lowell, Billerica, Westford, Bedford, you know, like, give me that gambit so I can understand. And then I'd like to know how many properties this would be impacting, because this is non-conforming lots. So do we have a number on that?
There's 14,000 residential lots, 9,000 of them are single-family. And of that 9,000, probably upwards of 80% are non-conforming.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
6,500.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Did Paul
It's
want to say
huge.
something?
Okay.
I believe he was
Why don't you
interested in.
put Paul on and,
Yep, Paul, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, everyone. For the record, Paul Haverty, Town Council. I did want to speak to the question about there only having been 3 applicants in the last year. That doesn't really address how many people actually researched this question, went to town staff, attempted to move forward with something, and were told that they're only allowed to move forward if they acquire a variance, and the variance was very unlikely to be granted. I think you probably see a much larger number of people seeking to take advantage of the provisions that were put into the 2019 bylaws, if they didn't need to get a variance with regards to lot area with regard to lot coverage and floor area ratio. I do think that it is very limiting. And with regard to the question of what other towns are doing, some boards of appeals throughout the state really are more lenient in granting variances and grant them, probably in situations where they shouldn't be granted. But our Board of Appeals now for several years has been very strict about following the specific rules for the grant of variances, and they're almost impossible to come by in our town, and appropriately. But what's being requested here by the Board of Appeals is to give them the ability to allow pre-existing non-conforming single and two-family structures to expand in a way that's consistent with the provisions that were already approved by town meeting in 2019. So I just do think that you need to keep that in.
Yeah, but I'm looking for, just from clarity perspective, I'm looking for what other towns are doing. I want to know how much their building coverage ratio is compared to ours. Like, where are we? Like, where is 15%? Like, are they all at 21%? Are they at 25%? Are they at 30%?
Anita,
And
you
we're
could
only
go
at 15%.
research that on their websites.
Well, you're presenting this to me, so if you want to, provide me with the
I
information.
can provide that.
That'd be great.
I can provide that, but then you have to look carefully at their exemption provisions or their flexibility provisions. such as that.
It's not just charts.
The biggest variable here, and I think Paul hit it, is the boards, the ZBAs in this state are all over the map and how lenient they are or how strict they are. Technically, under the law in Massachusetts, you got to be pretty strict on a variance.
You have 3 tenants that you grant
That's
variance
it.
with. That's
And,
it.
and-
It happens a lot, and it
Yeah.
even happened in past boards much more frequently than it does now.
Right, and
fact
I
is-
think we're doing it correctly. I think we're doing it by the
It's indeed disappointing
Massachusetts
to have a
law.
majority rule and still lose because you don't have a
Yeah,
supermajority.
exactly.
That's a challenge, as of 2 people can upset the whole board, which I don't say they shouldn't or should. It's just, that, you're losing to the majority is difficult.
All right. Well, it strikes me, we've got a couple of courses of action here. We could go ahead and decide whether we want to approve or we don't want to approve.
Endorse or not endorse.
Endorse is the correct word, because this is not our bylaw change. We're just the organization that gives an endorsement one way or the other. And I'm certainly prepared to do that.
Mike,
Yeah.
Tim, how
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
doing a straw poll?
Sure.
How about doing a straw poll?
Funny you should say that.
To see where we're at, and maybe we can get this buttoned up tonight.
Okay, yeah. Well, all right, let's do that. And the question for this straw poll will be, are you inclined to endorse this bylaw change proposal from the ZBA?
Mike, could you offer three alternatives?
What are those?
Endorse, not endorse, or need more information?
Okay, and if you say need more information,
Then
tell
be
us what it
prepared
is and make it something that's realistic to get. Okay,
Endorse.
endorse?
Endorse.
Endorse,
The way it is right now, not endorse.
okay.
I like more information. I'd like to know what other towns, what percent
Endorse.
ratio they have.
Em?
I'm an endorse as well.
So that's
Mike,
five.
do you need more information, or you just
No, I
don't
just,
want to endorse it at all?
no, I'm okay with the RB, 40%.
Yeah.
I didn't want anything else changed.
Okay.
And
I
this is new.
understand.
This is new tonight. I've
Okay.
watched their meetings.
All right.
They
So
didn't
you
discuss
don't
it.
endorse it?
Okay, well,
And I'm more on the non-endorsed, to be quite honest. I'm more with him, but I do want more. I'm curious to know what other towns.
Okay.
No, I appreciate
I
that.
think that's just-
I understand what you're saying. I think time is a little bit of the essence to make
Yeah.
Springtown meeting, but that really shouldn't be the deciding factor.
Okay, well, based on that, I would make a motion that we endorse this and go forward.
Okay.
It is a public hearing.
I'll second
Oh,
that.
okay.
It's, actually,
all
you're
right.
right, you have a good point, that it is a public
okay.
hearing.
Sorry.
Is
Brian,
there
thank you.
anybody from the public that wishes to, thanks a lot, Brian. Don't go away, we may need you.
Don't go away.
Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak on this particular bylaw change proposal? Hi. We hear from the select board.
No,
No, just you?
I'm Virginia Crocker Timmons. I live at 28 Levitt Lane, and I'm actually speaking as a Precinct 3 rep who would be
Okay.
voting on this. I also watched the Zoning Board of Appeals meetings, and I understand the rationale behind what's going on here. In any other case where we're bringing an article forward to town meeting, we ask the presenting board to fully vet it and for them to take a vote before it advances forward. And I don't see that that's happened within the Board of Appeals. And so my concern is just more of one of process, that if you don't have time to do it before Springtown meeting, then vet it a little bit more and put it in front of Fall Town meeting. But I have a hard time, from what I watched with the Board of Appeals meetings, saying that this is a Board of Appeals proposal. And, I mean, we heard tonight that it's really not. They had a discussion, there were a couple members that had different ideas, and then the chair and Evan worked this. And for me, that just leaves me uncomfortable. I really feel that if a board is bringing forward something to town meeting, it should be brought forward as a board and vetted as a board. And I think that if it's not, you're gonna run into trouble at town meeting.
Just to
Because
clarify.
people are gonna want that, so that's all I have to say,
Thanks,
thank you.
Virginia.
Just
That's a
just to
good-
clarify, the board has had this version, or this working version, for 2 meetings.
What board, this board?
The zoning board. They had a version of this at their last meeting, and then at their prior meeting, they had a version. Over that 30 days, I was engaged with the board, emailing them, asking for comment, and they've deliberated it twice, if not 3 times. The only provisions that the board needed to deliberate was B3. And as I said, their conversation was primarily focused around RB and RC because that's what they see.
Okay, let me ask Brian the question then. I mean, I guess I'd like to know just what it is that the ZBA feels. Is it the ZBA's position that we want to go forward with this?
I believe it is. I don't think we had a vote on that. We are meeting tomorrow night. I think it would be acceptable to vote, or ask for a motion and
I think
vote
that
on
might
it.
make some real good sense.
But I felt we left an agreement. I think there was some percentage changes and things like that, but it was difficult to understand how to
Yeah.
contain it, you know? Originally, we talked about just being done with it and leaving it open, and that didn't work at all. And then scaling it down to a definable number seemed to be to everyone's agreement.
Okay.
But tomorrow night, we're meeting again, and I'll be more than glad to.
If you would do that, because I think Virginia actually made a darn good point,
Apparently, a
which
lot of
had
people
not occurred
watch
to
it,
me.
so we'll
And-
know tomorrow night.
Okay, do we have time if, based on that, we wish to endorse?
Yeah, your next meeting is the 22nd.
And is that in time for an endorsement?
The select board, I believe, is scheduled to sign the warrant on the 27th.
Can't we
Okay.
endorse up until town meeting?
Well, we need to submit final language, final proposed
Yeah.
language for signing of the warrant. The warrant is signed by the select board on Monday, February 27th.
And
From that date moving forward at town meeting, as you know, it can be slightly revised, clarified.
but
You don't
you
really
hope
want
that it's
to.
complete by then.
Right.
Okay.
It's messy.
So, Mike, can
Yep.
we,
Yeah.
can I ask
It's
just
messy to
Brian?
do it after that.
Tomorrow, can you just clarify in your meeting? that
I'm
this-
going to ask for a motion
No.
to approve as,
Can you just ask them, this, and discuss, this happens in every zone across town?
as opposed to RC and RB.
Yeah.
And then have them vote on that with this.
I believe that it's not going to apply dramatically. Well, I suppose a residential property inside the
Well, you know,
industrial.
we've been dealing with an IA area that's got a substantial number.
I guess we've been lucky
That's
because
all
we
I-
haven't had that kind of mire, and it doesn't sound like it's easy to sort out.
Okay.
Yeah, but see, IA has a 40% coverage to
Correct,
begin
that's,
with.
correct, that's why,
They don't run into this.
that's why it's not really applicable.
You know.
Okay.
They don't need a 40% increase, because
Yeah,
there are a
'cause
lot
they
of
already
coverages
have
already.
40%.
Right, so,
You know?
which brings me back to why the zoning board was only focused on RB and RC.
Okay.
Yeah.
RA would have
And if that's
no,
the case, then they're going to approve
Yeah.
it tomorrow.
But I'd
Okay.
still like to
I mean,
have
I can see
I'd
the
still like
CA
to see
though.
what other towns are doing.
yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, these are things that we hadn't
Considering CA.
considered. I don't even know if a CA would come before us as opposed to it
If
being.
you had a single family or two
Yeah, it
family.
would come before you.
As long as
Yes.
there's a residence, it could be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
so
if you could
tomorrow
do
night we'll
that
have
tomorrow
that
night,
discussion.
let us know, let Evan know. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Your picture showed up, I assume you had something to say?
Paul, yes.
Yes, so, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out if the zoning board is going to discuss this at their meeting tomorrow night, I think you said. You just have to make sure that it's on the agenda, and if it's not, the agenda has to be updated.
But there's time to do that.
We'll update it tomorrow morning.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I
right.
think we have a
Thank you all for your
plan.
time.
Thank you very much.
Good
Thanks
evening.
for the
Thank you,
presentation.
Brian.
So you're going to continue this hearing?
Yes,
Until the 22nd.
Till the 22nd. Okay, motion?
To continue till the 22nd.
Yep, just go ahead.
Second.
Are you done with him?
Yep, I believe, do we have any more business for Paul?
Well, I like Paul to stay around because we have the 270 Billerica Road. You may have some questions on
Are there
that.
legal questions?
Yeah, maybe. I like
Well,
Paul.
I
could
don't,
do-
I mean, I'd rather not keep Paul around for an extended period of time. If there's a question, we can
Send it off
request it
to
and
him.
send it, or
Yeah. Vote
it's
to
entirely
send
up
it
to the
off
board if you want to keep him
All right, so we're
around.
not voting on 270 tonight then?
Nothing, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I don't know.
Well, that's, I don't know, like, if we're going to go down a path of taking a vote, then I want Paul on here because I may
Just
have
about to
questions.
take a vote on,
So,
So before we leave the public hearing, the second part of this public hearing, which we haven't really gotten to in the 2 or 3 sessions that's been open, is the sustainability
Right.
checklist and revisions to regulations. That's not time-sensitive. We can keep that hearing open as well. I do know that there are representatives from the Sustainability Committee that I think have an interest in trying to move that portion of the public hearing along.
Yes, I am aware that they are there. Let's see,
It's already after 8 o'clock.
yeah. And we have some fairly,
Oh, you want to table it?
yeah, I think we're
Yeah.
going to have to.
Table what?
The
we table?
sustainability
Yeah.
checklist until next time.
sustainability checklist.
But,
Sorry to come out of process, but the Duplip Chair CES Committee. Can I request that if the committee is going to table it, that we were given under the impression that it would be complete by the February 8th hearing. That was the make haste, not much fanfare, let's get going through this. Is there a process that we can have something done very quickly in short order? Is there a special meeting that you can come back to and have this done next week and 2 consecutive weeks? Because I think it's a simple enough change that requires hearing. Yes, I understand that this is a serious, discussion that may require it, but this has been presented and the material has been sitting around for some time. So if it's possible to consider it in short order, I would really appreciate, because it does build a framework for all actions that the planning board takes on further, because the ethos of sustainability is not just about environment, it's also about social impact and other governance structures and stuff. So it will flow well for PB's work with all the other articles that are coming up and discussion items. That's my input. Thank you.
okay, thanks. Evan, is this a public hearing on that, or is this just?
Yes.
Because I'm trying to find where it is.
It's embedded in the public hearing notice, the second
Under
half
zoning
of the
amendments and
legal
regulations,
ad.
it's right down there.
where?
Under number 1.
Okay, I see, I see where it's buried.
Right above new documents.
Go back.
Could we table it for the time being and do it tonight if we get everything else done by 9:30?
I don't, well, I think we.
I'm
yeah.
just afraid that this is going to take us to 11 o'clock tonight. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm
Like, I
not
have
up
nothing
for
planned
it.
tonight. Like, we go to 11, we go to 11. Like, let's just get through it.
All right, how long do you think, do you have a presentation? Okay, there's no particular, then, in that case, if there's,
Presentation
is there
before.
anybody here that wishes to speak on this as a matter of public hearing? Do I see any hands? I don't, okay. So this is strictly, at this point, a board discussion.
Is there
Yeah,
anybody
the
on
board-
Okay.
Zoom?
The board has reviewed this a couple
Yeah.
of times before the hearing. I'm bringing it up right now.
All right, then let's deal with it. Let's deal with it right
This is
away.
within your rules and regulations,
Yeah,
and the first change is right here under quality, under landscape plan, 2.811. Nancy Arroway submitted this for quality. That's not directly related to,
Yeah.
sustainability.
0.8.
And then sustainability starts up right here, a new section, 2.10.
What?
So if you recall,
I'm sorry.
2.10 is copied and pasted from the sustainability checklist, this narrative.
Okay,
And then it introduces the tiers. If you recall, the checklist is proposing 3 tiers. Tier 1 is projects that are over 20,000 gross square feet, or 20 residential units or more, or a special permit for major business complex, COID or BAYOD. Tier 2, and then Tier 3. And then within each tier is where the checklist comes in. The checklist is also part of the public hearing. And if you recall, the checklist, based upon what tier you're in, you'll see here, Tier 1 requires an applicant to submit evidence that they are complying with 4 building strategies, 4 stormwater management strategies. So Tier 1's
Yeah.
the biggest ask, or
Yeah.
the requirement. Tier 2 is moderate, and Tier 1 is the lowest.
yeah.
The lowest
Tier
threshold.
3.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the analysis here was that the strategy would be to incorporate this into your rules and regulations. That provides the maximum flexibility for both the applicant and the board, and see how it goes over the next year. And if after a year of being within rules and regulations, if the Sustainability Committee and the Planning Board feel as though this should be codified
Yeah.
within the zoning bylaw, then we would.
Then we will
take it
consider
down.
that as a separate
Correct.
action. Okay, yeah, 'cause I have looked at this. I've got to admit it was a little while ago, but I haven't forgotten all of it.
Yeah, if you recall, you
Free-
received a presentation from Weston and Sampson.
Right, we saw that.
Right.
I guess I'd have to say that as a way to get started in this space, it makes pretty good sense.
I think it's a good
And
checklist.
it being regulation, our regulation, we are in a position, if we feel we need to waive it. Am I correct there?
That is
Yeah,
correct.
so I mean, if
Only for
something
the
comes
year
up
that
and
it's
it
a
comes in front of us
regulation.
and said, wait a minute, this doesn't match that,
The applicant has the right to request waivers, and the board has the right to
right, to
grant waivers.
grant them.
Right.
Okay, that being the case, then I think this is probably a no-brainer.
I don't see any reason to object to it at all. I think
Okay,
it's a
then
good
why
starting
don't-
place.
I
We
would like
simply-
to see something in here that specifically exempted 1 to 4 family developments. I think it's just overkill for them.
As currently worded, just to clarify, as currently worded, it would capture 4 families that are proposed under COID.
And that's about it.
Yeah, that's my point. I think that it should exempt up to 4 families,
That they wouldn't have to fill out the checklist?
that they wouldn't have to fill it out.
Okay.
Why?
Oh,
It's not that big a deal.
Because
Yeah.
you're looking at putting it into regulation in a year, and I think that it's overkill.
Well,
I think we'll see how it goes.
yeah, let's see how it
Town
goes.
meeting will vote on that.
Are you referring to the stretch code and the opt-in?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would view that as a separate,
Yeah.
because this is
I
not heavy
just-
on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm willing to.
This thing makes me nervous.
Well, I'm willing to take a motion here if somebody wants to.
And I would like to see something in here that promotes planting trees.
That is in the checklist?
It's in the checklist.
Yeah.
I remember that.
All right, then I'll make a motion to accept the checklist?
To adopt the
To adopt
regulation.
Adopt the
to adopt
regulation.
the checklist?
I got a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All right, I guess we bring it to a vote. In favor? One.
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tim? Well, 5.
And 1?
And 1.
I'm an aye.
5, okay, we have 6.
6 and I, and 6 and 1.
It's 6 and 1.
Okay.
Okay. And, okay,
So since Paul Haverty is here, do you want to bring up 270 now, or do you want to?
yes, let's go to 270 right away. And who do we have here for 270?
Whole crew.
Ah, there they are. So we've kept them waiting a bit.
Sorry, I was prepared for 264.
Keeping everybody
do
guessing
270.
tonight.
All that single space pages there, Doug.
And just get it over with.
Not much, really. Sorry. There we go. Good evening. For the record, Douglas DeShane, representing DH Property Holdings. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Finner and Nicholson. With me this evening, Katie Enright from Howard Stein Hudson. It has been a while since we've been before the board on this project, other than to request continuances. You'll recall the last time we had a substantive hearing was this past fall. And as far, in terms of my recollection, at that time, we were actually, in my opinion, near concluding our presentation and request for the permits. We had addressed all of the board's and department's comments, peer review comments. We had presented why we believed we satisfied the criteria for the special permits we required. We had addressed, as you know, parking, loading, traffic, stormwater, architectural design, landscaping. We put a lot of work, the board and my client, in addressing the landscaping, and to provide for a better street view of the building by providing additional walls, berms, vegetation, to not only make it look better from the street, but to also buffer the parking and the loading docks. And I think we had achieved that. And in fact, again, I think we were very close. However, as we approached that final meeting, my clients, and I believe I've mentioned this in the past in seeking a continuance, my clients determined that the changes they had made, the additions, just all of the changes made in response to the board's comments, as well as the peer reviewers and the department heads and abutters, turned out that it added just about $1 million to the cost of the project. And so at that point, our clients really needed to take a step back and reanalyze whether the project was in fact, as it had progressed to, was financially feasible for the project. And of course, we were at the disadvantage of permitting this during a crazy economic time. So it was not unreasonable to see that $1 million in additional cost could really have an impact to the economic feasibility of the project. So that's what we've been doing for a number of months. In short, my clients had determined that in order to make the project economically feasible and sustainable, we needed to increase the size of the building. So as Katie is going to describe to you in a moment,
We did add additional warehousing space to the back of the building. We did not change or increase the number of loading docks or bays. We did have to adjust the parking a little and the drainage to account for the additional square footage in the building. We were able to do that without changing the view from the street, without changing the architecture of the building, without messing with any of the buffers and landscaping. And as you'll see, again, it was pretty much added to the back. So we have subsequently filed those changes with the board. I believe they were reviewed. I know the civil engineering was re-reviewed because we did have to change parking and drainage. And so I'd like to, just like Katie, give you a quick overview of those changes, and then we're happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information you board feels they may need. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. As Doug just brought you through, one of the things he didn't mention was also the traffic controls that we had discussed at the exit, making sure that that signage had been added. I believe it had been added at the previous revision, so that truck turns are left turn only towards the highway, and that signage was previously added to the plans. What I have up right now is just an exhibit to help you understand kind of what changed for the project. The project is still a redevelopment, meaning it's still less impervious than what sits on that lot today. We are proposing to add, there's a few small hatched areas. Move this over so you can still hear me. This area here, this area here, and then we had to reformat the parking lot to accommodate 17 more spaces for parking, and that's based on the zoning bylaw for what you need to provide for this type of building, so that we fully meet the zoning bylaw with the number of parking spaces we've provided. In doing that, we increased impervious over what was proposed before, meaning we had to go back through and adjust our phosphorus requirements or our phosphorus numbers to meet the stormwater bylaw for the town of Chelmsford. And to do that, you have to provide additional infiltration. So our infiltration system needed to grow based upon the increase in impervious for the parking lot specifically, because in most areas where the building grew, it was already currently pavement in the previous revision. So we've provided an entirely new, basically the whole package again. As Doug stated, it went out to Beta. And Beta has provided a new review letter. I believe it's all pretty much, says that everything is pretty much satisfied. And there are conditions which are very much typical. We will have to file for a NIPD's permit, which you don't do until you know who the contractor is going to be and the project's approved and you know it's going to construction. A stormwater pollution prevention plan will be submitted along with that. And essentially, they had asked for things like viewing the soils when the infiltration system is open. That's always on our cover sheet. It's always been a requirement of the town of Chelmsford that that happens, to make sure that the soils encountered are the same ones we encountered during our test pitting. So we didn't have any issues with any of the conditions that Beta had suggested. And with that, like Doug said, we maintained the same building improvements that we had done previously. We maintained the berm that we had done previously with the plantings on top of the berm. Ultimately, from where we started to where we are now, we've reduced the loading docks. We started at 16 and we were down to 13 when we went to revise this. And that's pretty much it. So certainly if you have any additional questions, we're here to answer them.
So it's still 13?
13, yep.
No change there. Now, what is the increase in the building size?
It's about, so it went from 81,799 square feet to 90,326.
So it went up about 9,000, and it's in those
8,500.
portions that you showed that were checked.
So it's about 10%.
Someone, as we're looking at it, a fair bit on the right and a little bit on the left rear.
Right.
Okay.
So the whole front face moved out a little bit, and then the back corner moved
Okay.
out a little bit.
So it's,
So where did it go? You added in the
yeah,
back?
it's at the
Just this
hatched
little piece
area.
here, This little piece here, and
Yeah.
then this piece here.
Yeah, I see you just moved out.
You didn't add in the back, 'cause I thought he said in the back. That's what I
Well,
thought
this
was
is what
the.
he's considering, this is what he was considering the back
Okay.
here, not here.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there
And-
windows in this building, in the front?
Yeah, you had us add, we had buildings on the first floor, no, we had windows on the second floor, and you had us add them on the
I have
first
the
floor to
elevation.
make
Yeah,
it,
can I?
to make it look,
Look more like a
office in
officey,
nature.
yes.
And we had done that at the previous application, we had changed this entire view shed.
Yeah.
And the whole corner, as you come from the highway down 129.
I have
you had
that
us
too.
change- No, that was the right one.
I have the rendering if you
The
look.
No, but that
renderings
was a
is
good
in
one.
Okay.
That was,
All right.
the rendering just doesn't show it as well,
Okay.
like what we did on the front, because it's a specific angle that was asked for. We can go to that after, I
Got
just
it,
want to
got
make
it,
sure
yep. Yep.
we start with that, because the elevations show, this is the west elevation. This is the side with the loading docks, and this is the corner that we wanted to make look nice, because the view
Yeah.
shed, you would be looking at that as you
Yeah, as you
come
come down the
down
road, yeah.
the street. We added all the first floor windows,
Okay.
the second floor windows. If you go to the other, keep going. That's the side that faces Progress Ave and the wetlands. Where's the front? Keep going. Oh, here. We changed all of the paneling on the front to change the colorations so that it wasn't one color throughout, it's not the same material throughout, and we added all of these windows so that as you drive down Billrica Road, both corners and essentially the front of the building looks like a two-story building.
Okay.
Even though it's only one
Okay.
inside, the view shed was changed such that it looks that way.
Okay, a question for you. Did you change the heights at all? No, okay, this is strictly expanding out the sides.
Correct.
It looks
Well,
like 10 or 20 feet.
We were already at a 45-foot average grade based on the grades all the
Okay.
way around the building.
Gotcha.
And then we had updated the corner view that had been requested with the berm and the plantings.
Yep.
To help screen.
Yeah, and that's
the
I see
loading
where the truck
docks on,
entry.
on that side. So that's the perspective view that we had an artist provide us. And this was updated based on the building change too.
Now, when I drive up, right, and it's not the Comcast building, that's the first one, then there's another building, and then this one.
Correct.
If I'm in that parking lot, I can see I can see the loading dock, right? Like, you can see that's the corner, but when I'm driving up, I can, what is preventing me from seeing the tractor trailers?
So we're
Okay.
creating basically a hill on
Okay.
that corner that doesn't exist there today.
Got it on the plan.
And then we're putting evergreens at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, just
right,
next
so
page
Between the
down
two
shows
buildings?
this shows, basically right now, it comes down off the road. This is gonna go down a little bit and then come up. And then it's gonna come up.
Yep.
There's gonna be evergreens planted on top of it, and then it's gonna go back down. So your view shed is gonna be the trees.
Okay, but.
So it's like topographically altered.
No, but I'm in, you can see through the whole, parking lot, I would
But
expect.
there's a
that's not
hill.
what we're proposing, is what's there. We're not proposing what's there. We're proposing to change the grade.
Right, but you're going with the evergreens all the way back, so it's parallel to, because,
Yes.
okay, because I'm thinking those
Well,
little
evergreens.
circles. Yeah, but,
That don't exist there today.
but.
Where your
then why
finger
just
is now,
stop?
does it keep going?
No, it doesn't keep going, because the view shed, you're never gonna look, if you look this way, you're looking past the building. You're not even looking at the building.
And not the road.
Yeah, right.
There's
When
no
I-
view shed to it.
When I'm coming down, really? Because
You have to stretch.
I was,
You'd have to stop and walk over to the edge of the road and then peer around the trees to see the building. The building that's there today there's no vegetation.
right,
There, it's all deciduous vegetation.
right.
And it's not tucked one after another
But
so
when
that
I'm
they
at
integrate.
the very first building, right?
Mhm.
Not the second one, right?
Right.
I have clear view all the way to the back of the current building.
Behind the building you're talking about?
Yeah, I can see the whole,
Like
the
if you
current
were
building.
behind the old Comcast building, you could see it. Is that
No,
what
I
you're
don't
talking
even have to be behind the car. I
Because
can
there's
take
no
the
trees
turn,
and
I can
there's
see
no
it.
trees and there's
I
no.
mean, Katie,
berm.
was there any consideration for extending the landscaping along the side property
Like if
line?
if
or a
I'm parked
fence?
in the next building, I don't
Because
want to
it's
be
not-
looking at tractor trailers, because again, we want,
They're the ones
otherwise
that
we're
sold us
gonna.
the property, so they've fully vetted this plan.
What?
They sold the property.
They fully vetted this plan.
Right, but I don't want this whole
For this
street
purpose.
turning into warehouses, so I like to make sure
I
that,
already prevented that by changing the zoning.
Zoning, it's already done.
You
It's
can't.
already done. I can't do it. I couldn't do this project tomorrow anyway because of the zoning changes.
This is it?
Okay, so, how many parking spaces got added here? What,
17.
17? Okay, it's not a huge.
And we also updated, we prepared a traffic memo just so we could show you the difference between what was proposed before to now.
They're not very big, given
Correct.
what you originally had. Okay, so
That's
we've,
on a square, the parking
Yeah.
is based on a square foot ratio.
That's correct.
so we've looked at this before a bunch of times and done a lot of vetting.
you need to do an updated traffic study, because isn't traffic driven by
We
the
did.
square
We
footage?
did, we prepared it and it's submitted to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
And it shows the differential and the increase in traffic based on the 8,500 square feet addition.
Okay.
All right, so we have it, it's in
Do you
front of
want
us.
the department letters?
Yeah, we better go through the department letters, and this is a public hearing, so we'll have to open it up.
All right.
There's no tenant lined up
There's
for
no
this.
tenant, no.
So how do you, I'm just looking at the beta recommendations, and you're saying that that standard's not applicable
Which one?
with the high potential pollutant loads,
That's based on the number of parking spaces
Okay.
and number of trips.
Directly?
Directly.
not what's being
Nope.
stored or any of that?
No, it's based on basically number of parking spaces and traffic,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, the what's being stored is somebody else's jurisdiction.
We can put it in there, and if it triggers, if it
Yeah.
happens to be triggered,
No, I was just wondering why that was kind of denied, not
Okay,
addressed.
let's go with the letters.
All right, first letter is from Fire Prevention Office. Dear members of the board, regarding the submission of revised documents for the proposed building at 270 Billrica Road, the Fire Prevention Office finds the following. Water supply, including the required pressure and flow, shall be confirmed by a current water flow test performed proximate to the site, with all calculations submitted to this department for review and approval. The developer shall add a hydrant within 60 feet of any proposed fire department sprinkler connection. The Chelmsford Fire Department requires a hydrant within 60 feet of the fire department connection and a hydrant within 500 feet or all points of the exterior of the building for manual firefighting operations. Hydrants and fire protection equipment shall be free from landscaping or vehicle obstructions with clearance of 72 inches to any hydrant outlet and 48 inches to the rear of the hydrant per CFD site plan review guidelines. Fire apparatus access is acceptable. Fire apparatus access shall be designed by a registered engineer to withstand the weight of fire apparatus. Snow storage shall not obstruct or impede fire access roads or turnaround. All exits shall have sidewalks to allow a continuous path from the exit that leads to a public way. The dumpster location shown on this plan is adequate. An automatic sprinkler system conforming to NFPA 13 and a fire alarm system conforming to NFPA 72 shall be required. All systems shall be monitored by a UL-approved central station monitoring service, and all components and fire protection systems must comply with state building code and Chelmsford Fire Department requirements. All equipment related to fire safety shall be located at the discretion of the Chelmsford Fire Department. The applicant is advised that testing for emergency radio responder communication, and if necessary, installation of a bidirectional amplifier system shall be required according to Chelmsford Fire Department ERRC regulations. Due to the Chelmsford Fire Department's operational model for firefighter safety, a standpipe system conforming with NFPA 14 shall be installed throughout the building, with no portion of the building more than 200 feet from a hose outlet. The applicant will be required to provide an interior stairway for rooftop access. The applicant must apply to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for address and unit numbering through its coordinator, Town Clerk, Tricia Zuris. This office would approve of this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this letter a part of their approval process. Respectfully submitted, Danielle Koutsufis, Fire Prevention Captain. The next letter is from the Chelmsford Police Department. Dear members of the Chelmsford Planning Board, the Chelmsford Police Department Special Services Division has received the document packet for the proposed redevelopment and construction of a warehouse building at 270 Billrica Road. I have reviewed the documents provided as well as visited the property in question. The existing signalized intersection of Billrica Road, Alpha Road, and 270 Billrica Road has some concerns. I would like to recommend the following modification to the submitted plan. At the existing signalized intersection, please revise plan to reflect the following. Add signage that vehicles turning left must yield to oncoming traffic. This would be directed to the vehicles exiting the driveway of 270 Billrica Road, turning left on Billrica Road.
Is that doable?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't receive the copies of these letters. Do you have extras?
We can,
we'll
we'll make
get them
something
to you.
available.
I'm sure
for
we
you.
can,
Yeah, no, we would be happy to add that. That's fine.
Okay. We'll consider that part of it then.
let's see, who's this from? Oh, Chelmsford Water has no comments. And we have a letter from Beta. David Kuntz,
I
Conservation
don't know if you need to read
Agent.
that entire,
I
the
don't-
entire letter.
Yeah, that's not one of our specific inputs, is it?
Yeah, they did not indicate any
Okay.
major concerns or any concerns for that
All right.
matter.
That
All right,
rests
so we
primarily
will
with-
enter it into the minutes and leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been with us a bit. It is also a public hearing, so,
Chris LaValle's also on Zoom.
Chris is on?
He's had his hand up.
good, okay, we'll get Chris on.
Thank you, Board. Chris LaValle, 10 Edgewood Street, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Rep. The two issues and concerns I had were already brought up initially to the members of the board already. The first one is the landscaping. That landscaping rendering of the view from the street only covers the view from the corner of the lot. As Ms. Tonini said, if you're approaching from Route 3 towards the stoplight in front of 300 Billrica Road, you have a clear view to the back loading docks because that area is up on a hill. So the first page that I sent you by email today, from roughly about midway at the 300 Billrica Road property, you would be able to see the loading docks because the landscaping does not go all the way back. So one of the things I would request is because that is highly visible from that hill, if you could request that the landscaping go all the way back to the back corner of that lot. The second concern I have is, again, the categorization that this is not a land use with a higher potential pollutant load that Mr. McDougall brought up. I find that hard to believe since the tenant is not yet determined. So I know that the other warehouse in town was categorized as a potential high pollutant load. And one of the categories, or one of the requirements for that categorization is if there is an exterior fleet storage area. And I would assume that trailer parking does count as exterior fleet storage. Otherwise, you wouldn't be needing to store your trailers there. In addition to that, if this is a distribution center, there are potentially hazardous materials going through that facility. So I would assume that it potentially, depending on the use, might be a use with a high potential pollutant load. So I would ask that this be recategorized and reanalyzed in terms of that categorization.
Okay.
Those are my two concerns.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Soon to
I
be.
don't see anyone else on Zoom.
Okay. Is there anybody? Here we go.
Whether you play up in 5 Chair tonight. I just wanted to maybe ask this question of planning board, now that the rules and regulations have the sustainability questionnaire, is this project subject to that at this point, or is it too
No.
late? Or
It was submitted prior to.
Yeah, this is prior to our change in regs, so I wouldn't want to force that upon them, although if they want to take a look, I certainly
I think it
wouldn't
would be
object.
prudent.
But they said they were going to look into
Yeah, I
putting
thought
solar.
Yeah, so it would be
In
prudent.
one of our meetings, they did mention.
Yeah,
it
they
was-
mentioned some of it, I remember it, but it would be prudent, I know that it's still in the early phases, and we understand that this was started as a process before
Right.
the rules and regulations,
But good faith.
but in good faith, we will also work with them to identify what's minimally intrusive to their plans if needed.
Okay,
That's all. So we
All
will
right.
reach out.
All right, I mean, if
Contact
you,
and we'll reach
if,
out and-
certainly a conversation is probably worth having
Yes.
here. I'm not sure that there's anything we want to bake into conditions or requirements at the moment based on that,
It's
You can
already
give them the
pending.
checklist.
because it's already pending, but I'd say go ahead and have the conversation.
Sure,
if you-
we'll do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Are we having any monitors for the truck traffic to ensure that it truly does take a left and it's not adversely, doing something it shouldn't do? Is there any controls in there? Are we putting any of that in?
Or teeth, if there's not
Right.
compliance with that?
No, there's none proposed, and I believe if you remember back to VHB, who reviewed the traffic study, VHB didn't even agree with the necessary restriction on the right turn.
Vanessa.
Because of Vanessa, oh, sorry, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
Vanessa, Vanessa Associates. We agreed to give you the left, basically the left turn only, just as a sign of good faith, but VHB had reviewed it without that, and there were no concerns.
Okay, well-
Vanessa, again, I said it again,
Yes.
Vanessa.
I mean, we do know that 495, they're redoing all the bridges, right? And there's going to be a lot of, traffic,
There's very little truck traffic that comes out of this proposed development.
Right, but there's going to be an additional, once they start redoing all the bridges on 495, that's going to cause a lot of issues. And I'm, just want to make sure we put
That'll
something
be
in there.
joyful.
Well, right, on top of everything else.
Okay.
When you look through, like when I'm looking through the criteria here, I like to also I'd like to have something in here that if it's not an issue, it's not an issue, and they don't have to ever worry about it, but at least we have some teeth into it if it ever becomes an issue. I think that just should be prudent for us to make sure that we have something in there that we can do. I mean,
Yeah.
traffic's such an issue in this town
So the-
across the board.
So the plan's going to show the left turn only.
Right.
For trucks. It's going to be
Correct.
signed that way for trucks. So if a police officer happens to see a truck turning right, they have the ability to enforce it.
Okay.
Okay.
But what
That-
happened-
Then, if there are identified and evidence violations that are submitted to the town,
Yeah.
the town can proceed with fines and enforcement.
Yep.
Whose responsibility is that, though? I mean, we had talked, I think, originally about maybe putting something in place like the town of Westford has at
It's just
the...
not
Well, we were
rise to
talking
that
about that
level.
with
Not
Riverneck.
even-
Near that level.
Large
Not
scope
even
and scale
close.
project, which is why it was introduced with Riverneck.
Yeah.
It's of such a scope and scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
In lieu of there being a active monitoring system, it's enforcement like anything
Yeah, and
else.
I think we have to recognize that a great deal of the enforcement in town is based on citizen complaint, and it has to be. Really, that's that's the first line of defense.
As the police department letter suggests.
Yeah.
And they've asked for.
additional sign.
Some additional signage. If once this facility is up and operating and there's a safety issue that's identified by public safety, then there's mechanisms in which we can work with the property owner and the operator to address those safety concerns. But the police department would have to identify a legitimate safety concern.
Right.
And a good example of that is they require a detail because it's so unsafe without a detail.
That's what they've had to do.
What
over
you're
the other
hearing,
side
what
of
you're hearing
the
from
highway.
the traffic review, your peer review consultant, is that he did not envision this to rise to that level just based upon the scope and scale of the operation.
But certainly our safety people
Oh,
have the
absolutely,
authority
yes.
to require that if they find they have a problem.
Absolutely.
Right, but
Okay.
the left-hand turn is for trucks coming out of here. This doesn't really address, trucks getting off at 110 and going up Golden Cove. And that's where I'm really concerned, because even though they don't think this is a lot of truck traffic, 40 trucks or 30 trucks getting off of.
Vanessa said it was
on Golden
negligible
Cove.
in their review. They said it was negligible. 40 trucks are not going to all go the same way on the same day at the same time. It's 40 trucks spread out over a time period.
Okay,
The
but
whole
still 40
24
trucks on
the whole
Golden Cove
day.
Road is
Yeah,
a
they're
lot.
not.
I drive that road every single day, twice a day. I know exactly what happens.
Right. And your GPS is going to tell you to get off there to avoid going down and dealing with the connector and getting onto Route 3. Because even though it's shorter, maybe in miles, it's faster by 15, 20 minutes by getting off there and cutting through Golden Cove.
well,
So, I mean, this particular issue we're left with, can it be mitigated?
Yeah,
It doesn't sound like we found a solution.
yeah.
They can't alter their legal address. It's 270 Billerica Road.
We've proposed a solution. The solution
No,
is the
no, I
left
mean,
turn only.
Yeah,
Cars come in,
I
trucks
I
come
I
in
just
too.
want something to
So
protect this.
I mean, you
the
basically were
citizens of
saying,
Bishop.
but nobody's going to obey the left turn only. Well, we have ways that we can,
Oh, I thought you were referring to coming to the facility.
Well, I am coming to the,
Yeah.
I'm concerned, and I want something in there that protects the town and these people that live on Golden Cove.
But-
If it's not a
so-
problem, it's not a
So
problem.
what I'm saying is, I'm not sure what that mechanism is. Clearly, the applicant isn't proposing one. Your peer review consultant didn't suggest that one was warranted. At this point, I mean, I don't think, maybe the board needs to take a straw poll to figure out whether this is an issue or not an issue.
well, we can do that, or we can, I don't see a whole lot of other conversation. I know we've been through this plan quite a number of times in its various, I'm willing to take a straw poll if people think a straw poll would help them, but frankly,
I'd vote it's not an issue, and let's move forward.
yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's where I'm at.
Well, I, right now, the way it stands, I don't know what the financial impact is to the community. I'd like to understand how much we're going to get off of this. I like to address what Chris brought up regarding the hazardous waste, and I think that's not smart of us to just waive that. I think we need to look at that.
That's
And I
not
think-
that's not what creates a loophole. The LU,
And then I do want the vegetation all the way down. And I think that's, I think that needs to be covered, because you can see it. And thank you, Chris, for bringing that up, because I
Okay.
am not crazy when I drive down there
All
4 or
right.
5 times a day.
Would they be open to that? Putting
if the rest of the board
arborvitae all the way
requires it, we'll definitely consider it, and it can be a condition of approval. If the rest of the board feels it's necessary, I do not.
Yeah. I'm inclined to think it's not necessary either, but if that's,
How far away is the other building?
Well, trees are always good, that's all.
I don't
Do
think
you
it's
have the
necessary
aerial?
either.
Do you have the aerial that shows how close the other building is?
Is that the proximity plan, or is that a different project?
No, no, you'd have to pull it up online.
Oh, no, I don't have that.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, no, don't worry about
I
it.
may have it
I
on
mean,
your
you're
cover sheet.
yeah.
Your cover sheet may show it though, right?
I don't show the other building on the sheet, no.
Town meeting.
Their parking lot pretty much goes right up to the property line and extends onto our property right now at the back.
So, put more trees.
I think we're about at the point where, I mean, we've got several points of view laid out, but I think we're at the point where bringing this to a vote probably makes some good sense. And of course, to do that, we would have to first close public hearing.
So just proceed, did you have something to ask council?
Yeah.
Is council still with us on 270?
No, I mean, not yet, possibly.
Okay, so just to summarize where we are.
Yeah.
Sounds like the board is taking, no additional inquiry on the traffic.
Right.
The landscape line along the property line, sounds like the board's also covered that.
Yeah, we have covered that issue.
Yeah. The higher potential pollutant load is not a determination that the planning board makes. It either triggers it or doesn't trigger it.
Right.
So
Why
I'll
would
put,
Beta bring it up then? Why is that part of
well,
the
because
peer review?
I'll put it in there. And what I'm saying is, I'll put it in there as a condition.
Yeah.
It's part of the
But it's not
stormwater
ours.
management calculations. It
Right.
changes how pretreatment of the stormwater management system is done.
Okay.
Beta checked
What's
that.
the cost to that? Is there a large cost to that, or is it?
No, I would have to go through and see. It just depends on what pretreatment devices you use.
What are you using?
We're using deep sump-putted catch basins. We're using rain guardians into basically rain
What
gardens.
happens when the use will have hazardous chemicals? What changes? What's the?
Well, how are they going to run across the parking lot into a catch basin?
exterior.
So there's other things. So there's other things that we need to do. That we need to also make sure that we follow the construction general permit. We have to send this to the EPA. There's a stormwater pollution prevention plan that goes with that. There are spill kits on
Which are
site.
your part of your
Yeah.
boilerplate conditions.
Significant work,
Yeah.
right, to protect that.
That's the one
Understood.
thing that stood out on that report that. you
Do we
guys
have any
just
more
got
public
approved.
comments?
So if the board's inclined to close tonight,
Yeah.
Is there anyone
You
else who
could-
wanted to speak?
procedurally, I would suggest that we have a draft decision ready for your March 8th
Yep.
meeting.
Okay.
You can close and you can vote if you like, as long as the board understands that you're basically voting approval with the detailed decision.
Yeah,
to
and
come to
which is
your-
something that we have traditionally
Yes.
done, and I think has been pretty effective.
I don't see any public comments.
Okay. There's no more public comment that I see.
Just ask a question why it
Yeah.
wouldn't go to the next meeting in 2 weeks.
So the reason for that is the next meeting, the board has attempted to carve that entire meeting out for River Neck Road. And while I'm not suggesting that a review and ratification of this decision wouldn't be time-consuming, it could take some time.
'Cause
So
we
that was
are-
the only reason I
Right,
mentioned.
we are up against a timeline at this point, too,
Okay.
with the purchase and sale, so.
If the board doesn't think, the way I see this right now, it's a pretty typical.
Yeah,
permit
I think we
decision.
should handle this the way we have traditionally, which is vote on the matter, close the hearing, vote on the matter, and then we will do a final approval of the draft.
They're looking for it to be done on February 22nd, rather than the
I
8th.
don't see any reason why that would not be
Okay.
doable.
All right, so I make a motion to close the public meeting.
Okay, have a motion?
I'll second that.
Have a
I'll
motion?
second that.
And a third in it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public hearing is closed.
All right. I make a motion to approve this application, subject to conditions to be finalized at the next meeting.
Well, I think I think we can be more specific. I think we've
Trees.
already named the conditions.
The conditions are with the trees are going to extend the whole length of the back of the.
Did the full board
I
talk-
didn't hear
agree to
that.
How did
Why
that
don't you
go with
take
the
that
board?
individually? Why don't you ask,
Yeah.
do they want the extension?
Yeah.
How many want the extension?
Okay, who feels that, I don't really care one way or the other, but,
I don't think it
Jim?
adds
So it's
anything.
4 to 3.
I don't think so.
It's more trees. We're putting a whole
yeah.
piece of concrete up.
Yeah,
And
at least you can do
You're
is
not
throw
going to
some
give us freaking
trees.
trees?
So it's
Come
4 to
on.
3.
Okay.
Trees.
I would rather see maples in there than evergreens, to be
Oh, boy.
honest, but,
We're keeping some of the existing trees.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I
Can you,
mean, they
mature
do
trees
more
there.
all right,
both for
can
the
can you extend
landscaping
that?
and the
Can you
environment.
extend the shrubbery?
If the board agrees that that's a condition
Okay,
of approval.
then let's put that in. I think we've got
Okay.
consensus on that.
Okay, so there's a motion by
Okay,
Dan.
so a motion to approve with all of the conditions submitted by the various departments, and with the additional condition that they will extend the tree line the whole way back. Do we have any other,
I think that covers it.
okay. And all of our standard conditions that we normally apply to this type of,
All right, I have a motion.
I'll second that.
Tim seconds. Last chance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Aye.
6.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
You're a no?
Against.
Or are you okay to vote on this? Yeah, you've
Yeah,
been on
Ken,
here.
yep.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm against is because I
Okay.
don't think it meets the social, economic, and community needs.
Okay.
I don't believe it fits the neighborhood character and social structures, and I don't understand and never was presented with the potential
Understood.
fiscal impact on
Understood.
this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, procedural clarification.
Yes.
I believe we have before you a special permit for a major
Yes.
commercial, and we also have a special permit for.
You're
aqua for-
absolutely correct,
Was
and you
this
need
under
two motions.
COID?
Absolutely correct.
Not COA.
Not
Okay.
COID.
No, it's not
Then
COID.
we have
No,
to.
this is a by right.
Right, I was thinking COID, yeah,
It's just
okay.
the stormwater.
So-
Excuse me.
All right.
I interpreted your
Aquifer
motion to be
protection.
per the legal ad, which covered both of those. But if you
Okay.
want to make another second
That's
motion,
fine.
you can.
That's fine.
You're satisfied with that?
If that's the way it's.
Okay, that's the way I would interpret it, based on the legal ad. Okay, in that case, I believe you have your special permits.
Thank you very much.
We will
For your
take,
time and
Huh?
consideration. I said thank you.
sure.
You know what, I would like to ask that you try and accommodate the Badri's committee and meet with them.
At least
and
talk
see what
with
you
them,
can-
talk with them, see.
See what you can
They'll
do
see what you can
in
do
terms
with
of.
It might be a good
building
shot for,
Good faith.
yeah, might be a good shot for us to get a first look at the regulations we just passed and see if there's anything horribly wrong, which I doubt, because I think they were well drafted. Okay,
So you want to go back to 47 Chelmsford Street? The applicant is here.
yeah, we'd better go back and take care of that. 47 Chelmsford Street. Now, as I recall,
That was continued.
that was continued.
So this agenda was posted
Yeah.
Friday and Monday. The applicant rescinded their request for continuance today, late yesterday, today.
I missed that.
So it is an administrative item,
Yeah,
so meaning it doesn't require a public hearing or so
Right.
forth. This is a continuation from your last meeting.
okay.
Good evening, everyone. Katie Enright again with Howard Stein
All
Hudson.
set, Paul, thank you.
Bob
Thank you,
is
Paul.
also here with me tonight. As you remember, I represented Bob at the first initial hearing for 47 Chelmsford Street when we were looking at the first floor commercial retail space and the second floor one three-bedroom apartment. So since then, it's my understanding that there's been 2 applications before the board to change what was happening on the second floor, and that's basically due to some feedback he got about the building requiring a very expensive upgrade with the sprinkler system. So I want to just have a conversation with you. Was not here for the last hearing. I just kind of want to go back and kind of have some communication with the board. Evan, if you could actually start with the existing conditions plan. So, when this started, obviously it was Feeney Flores with some offices above it. This is an existing conditions plan that Bob had done by Pat Flaherty before we started the project when he bought the project. So the original project had 6 spaces in the front of the building on Wilson Street, 1 on the side here, unless they were trying to park here too, which it looks like they might have been trying to. And also, even though there's no stripes here, they parked all along the fence at the back, which on my new plan shows 4 spaces. When Bob contacted me to look at this for retail and for housing, I re-envisioned the lot, right? I re-envisioned the lot for a 3-bedroom residential on the second floor, and I looked at the amount of parking that this project would require. And in doing that, I reduced the amount of parking on his lot. Because I was trying to make it fit within the box of the current zoning bylaw. Just doesn't fit. What I was trying to do was create parking spaces within his property lines that best meet your zoning, which is a 9 by 19 space, 10 by 20. When you're looking at parallel aisles that work, I was trying to fit it in that box. And I did for 1 3-bedroom apartment. But now, because of the economic viability of this incredibly expensive sprinkler system, Bob has been looking at the financials of it, and I know he's been in here flailing a little bit with different aspects of what to do on the second floor to make this work, right, and make him be able to do this. So currently, he's proposed to you 2 two-bedroom units on the upper floor right now. Now, within your zoning bylaw, under VCOD, I want to call it CVOD every time because you have the center village and the village center, but based on that bylaw, a 2-bedroom plus unit needs 2 spaces, plus 1 per 5. So technically, based on your bylaw for that district, the upper floor would need 5 parking spaces. And the 50% reduction, which is commercial only, would be 6 spaces. So we'd go to 11. Well, he started with 11 before I touched it. He had 11, but they weren't compliant because they were using part of the right-of-way of Wilson Street. And when I say the right-of-way, I mean not the pavement, I mean the land associated with Wilson Street, which historically has just been done for as long as I can remember. I've been coming to Chelmsford my whole life. So this has existed this way for as long, I don't know, probably as long as everyone here can remember. I tried to fit it inside the box. In doing so, I reduced his parking to 9, and now he needs 11. He needs what we started with.
Can you go back, can you go back to the other map right there? Yeah, so you're saying Wilson.
Wilson Street. This is the stripe, the white stripe, but this is the property line.
Oh, okay, so all those other, which everybody parks on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they're
yes.
parking in the
It's
street.
like that all
All
up and
the-
down Chelmsford Street. Like if
Yes.
you go to the laundromat, you basically have to back out into the road, right?
The nail place.
If you really, if you put up a curb, or if you put up something at the edge of the town's right of way versus the property, you wouldn't be able to use those spaces.
Yeah, okay.
So, we're in a conundrum right now, and basically, I wanted to come and help, well, Bob asked me to come and help kind of explain what we're talking about, but I talked to Evan today. We believe it's within your provisions, based within the zoning bylaw. Multiple sections say that it's in the planning board's provisions to waive parking. I understand that's a difficult thing. Or do we just continue an existing non-conforming condition that's been there forever to get him his 11 spaces? You know, I don't, so I'm here tonight to talk to the board and basically say, you know, Bob was thinking about after the last meeting, he contacted me, you know, upset trying to figure this out, and we basically, you know, I said, this is the conundrum. I said, this is how you're stuck. I mean, he doesn't, I looked at it every which way to get him more parking spaces that fit the requirements of the bylaw, and I can't make it fit in that box. It's an existing building with an existing users who have always forever used this. So I guess my question to you, Bob didn't want to, he was gonna withdraw, and then we talked and said, and we talked to Evan and said, you know, maybe it's worth at least a conversation to say, this is what we're trying to accomplish. How would you like us to proceed? Or would you like us just to go away and leave it with the existing approval, I guess? Because it's just really a tough spot.
So the existing approval is for the 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom?
Correct.
A three and a 1, correct?
A 3 and a 1 was.
It was,
Sorry, I'm
first it was a
sorry.
3.
2 and a 1.
It's going
And then
to
it
a-
got changed
yes,
to
yes.
a 2 and a 1.
A 2 and a
So with
2.
the 2, no, but,
But a 3
No,
and a
no.
1 requires.
no, it was a 2 and a 1.
2 and a 1, yes.
2 and a 1. So the 2 and a 1 would require,
1 less parking space,
why? Why not 2?
because it's one bedroom requires a space, not
Yeah,
2.
yeah.
A 2 plus requires 2 spaces,
Okay, so that's 3.
plus 1 per
6.
5.
So if you have
Plus
1 per 5, you get 1 per 3.
Right, any
Okay,
ratio like
I
that.
see. Any
And it's a
part
small
of-
ratio, right? Because we're not even close to 5 units. But I would assume, based on, I would assume it needs at least, would be 1
It's like a
visitor
visitor
space
one.
based on that.
Yeah.
Unless we were allowed to round down, I guess. You guys look exactly like I felt.
Yeah.
Is this your best
Yeah.
plan?
Basically, I
I
understand
think the easiest way to
it.
do it would be either
Approve the parking.
approve it as an existing, approve the existing parking along Wilson Street as an existing nonconformity, or give us a waiver for 2 parking spaces, or a special
What
permit for
if,
2
So-
parking.
why do we need to change it from a 2 and a 1 to a 2 and a 2?
Because it's 2 bedrooms we're proposing now, and so
I
they.
know, but why? If we don't have enough parking for 2 bedrooms, why don't we go back to 2 and 1?
Because he bought it with 11 spaces on it, which is what he needs to have this project.
Well, why did he come to us with the 2 and the 1?
Right, because he thought it could be economic, and it's not, is what he's finding.
If you recall, the sprinkler.
Yeah, it's a sprinkler
There's
problem.
a sprinkler requirement, which was
I get it.
identified
There
during
should
permitting.
have been some interim stuff, and I know Bob feels bad about it at this point, that he's been basically trying to figure out how to get this done.
Bait and switch.
And no, he just doesn't.
No, I
mean,
know.
this
But that's
isn't
how it
his-
felt.
This isn't his thing, he was
Right,
opening
right.
a store, he was.
So nobody told him
bringing
when he
his-
bought it that it didn't have enough parking to
bringing his
support the
family over
building.
to live there, and now he's trying to find a way to bring in enough money to basically support the development of the upstairs and the other
So
improvements.
wouldn't it be easier just to keep it, I mean, not for anything, but like the parking the way it is now, I never knew it was,
It
you're
would
not
be.
supposed to park that way. But
And
I always found it very convenient, because you could just pull in.
Yeah, and
Like,
people
is that
are used to
almost
it.
better, like, to keep it as
I mean,
is?
this property has been a problem for a long time,
Yeah.
and we've had to deal with it.
This is not the
This
first
is
time that
not
we
the
have
first
been
time we've
inclined
seen
to
this.
turn down an application on this property.
And dear board members, see, like, this was my first experience, so that was the reason I know I did some of the mistakes. Like, because if I would having some plans, I would start with the 2+2 bedrooms initially, but like it's a practical life, like the plan changes as per the requirements and everything. So this is like the thing, like, I'm not violating any laws, and I'm also in a process to change, like, because in my previous plan, that was the existing plan showing the confusion of the users of the 3 bedrooms instead of 1 bedroom, but I'm already been in touch with my architect, and they will remove the wall, and it's my promise it will be shown as a 1 bedroom only, if in case you cannot approve me for this previous one.
Okay.
But I'm just going, as per the flow, so.
Bob, do you have anywhere adjacent that you can lease 2 parking lots?
I mean, there's this town hall parking that's not that far away. It's right on the
It's
other
right
side
across
of
the street.
fitness. It's
Yeah.
right across the street. And so, I mean, it would probably fall under the requirements in your parking bylaw to just say we'd use those 2 for public parking. Based on, if you were to give the waiver, you would just say that those would be able to be used.
This is the new proposed way of parking, right?
This is the proposed way of parking that
And
needs 2 more spaces.
that's the best way to go about
So I would be
it.
more inclined
Okay.
to
All right,
reduce
that's all I
the
need to
amount of
hear.
parking than to approve parking on the street.
I tend to agree. I think, again, it's a problematic lot, but I'd rather see all the parking be on the property, because who knows? I mean, if the town comes along and decides, well, they want to put some kind of a sidewalk in 10 years from now, it could be an awful mess.
Well, besides which, that's a nasty turn, and if
Yeah.
somebody takes that turn too fast and the car's sticking out, they're gonna get hit.
Just like somebody did in the center here about
But I'm thinking like,
5:30 today.
Oh, really?
this
Yeah.
is from the
I
bottom,
mean,
it's the
certainly
top
easily
that's
in
like
walking
this,
distance
right?
from the parking
It's
spaces
easily within
right here
parking
between
I think
spaces.
what she's come up with is what should be done on the property, basically.
No, this is not. This is administrative. Okay.
Oh, we have public input.
Huh?
There's some public input.
Yeah, it's not a public hearing.
Oh, it isn't.
Would you allow it?
No.
No.
I'm fine with
It
this.
just goes down
I'm-
rat holes.
I'm good. I mean, which is the option we're talking about? Going with a 9?
Yeah.
Either
Her-
way.
her plan.
Reducing the required
Do
parking.
we have,
and-
do we have the appropriate statutory authority to do that, Evan?
Yes.
All right.
That didn't sound
Motion?
convincing.
And then would it contain anything about the additional?
No,
Two
I don't think we
spots?
want to try to encumber town,
Okay, fine.
town parking in any formal way.
Okay, so then we need a plan that actually shows what he wants to do with apartments and 9 parking spaces with a request to waive 2 of the required parking spaces.
Right, so it's this plan that's basically being proposed.
Which is already approved.
It's already approved.
Which is already
Yeah.
approved,
From the
but
parking.
it's the second floor plan. What is the last second floor plan you submitted? Did you submit a 2-bedroom plan?
No,
Okay.
2+1.
So we need to
I
submit
submitted
We need-
2 plus
Okay, so
1.
so you need to give us,
We
We
need a
have-
whole package we can see, okay?
We have the 2 and 2 right here.
we have it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
great.
Oh, I'm,
You-
No,
you
that's
have
not what he
2 and
wants
2.
to do.
yes, I'm sorry, like.
Oh, that's what he wants to do. He wants
All
2
right.
bedrooms
He
in
came
both.
back
Yes,
to say
yes.
that.
That's all we need.
And we have it. It's-
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, in that case,
Motion?
So what are we asking for? A waiver here, Evan, or a waiver
Well,
of
it's
two
a-
parking spaces?
It's a special permit to reduce the parking.
Special permit
Right,
to reduce the
this is coming as a
parking.
minor modification.
Minor mod, okay.
Right.
Okay. Motion to approve a special permit to reduce the required parking by two.
Modification of the existing
Modification.
special permit.
I'm sorry, a special permit for a modification of the existing plan to allow two-bedroom apartments without an addition of 2 parking spaces. Does that sound accurate?
I'll second that.
With a reduction in the required
Well,
parking spaces?
that's
Yeah.
what that did.
We're covered.
Without an
In
addition.
favor?
Without.
Aye. You got it.
Thank you all very
Thank
much
you.
for your understanding.
Good luck, Bob.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, you
Thank
know-
you very much. I'm sincerely obliged with your decision. I respect
It would be,
Thank you.
it would be nice if some deity would come along and simply drop another tenth of an acre on that lot.
Yeah.
I will never let you guys anything. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Okay.
264.
264 Groton. Is Doug here?
One more.
There he is.
And then if we have time, we can circle back to the second administrative item.
Which is, okay.
Board policy, procedure discussion related to requests for town council.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that we can always do by email if we have to. You're on.
Can I start?
You may.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Douglas DeShane from Finneran and Nicholson representing the applicant. With me this evening, Matt Waterman from Land Tech Consultants, Inc. I'd like to remind the board, we're here on a continued hearing seeking approval of a conventional 2-lot subdivision. There are no special permits or associated with this application. Since we last spoke, we've provided the board significant information, which I think is important in addressing your concerns of the abutters, and certain questions of legal significance. The first thing we've shown is a plan, we've provided is a plan showing that this 2-lot subdivision can be proposed without any waivers. That it can be built to full town standards
What's it labeled?
without waiver, and that we can actually do it. We've actually shown on that plan the fire department template, so that our no waiver plan does in fact meet the turning templates of the fire department. However, as I have been honest in presenting to the board, if we do in fact build this road fully conforming without waivers, given that it would meet all of the town's standards, it would be accepted, or it would be submitted for acceptance as a town road. Secondly, we have provided, Mr. Waterman has provided a very detailed response to all of the department head comments, including the fact that we did a environmental impact statement with our study and report with respect to the nitrogen loading, even though we're not in a water resource protection zone, and the wells are some distance away, but as expected, that study showed that our septic systems will have no impact whatsoever on the town's wells. And in fact, it's flowing, I believe, in the opposite direction. So we did respond, and we responded to all of the department comments, and in fact spent significant time working with the fire department to address their issues and their consideration of the waivers and the T turnaround proposal. We have provided an updated plan showing the proposed T turnaround and that it will comply with the fire department turning templates. But I will say that in working with the fire department on, the review of the proposed T turnaround, they did require that we not waive from the, or that we don't seek a waiver, or that you don't grant a waiver for the, let me just make sure I get it correctly. We had asked for a section 203-13A6 dead-end streets provision which requires a turnaround with a radius of 62.5 feet to the outside of the layout, and we asked for a waiver to 50 feet. However, the fire department, again, in approving the use of the T-turnaround, wanted to make sure that the T-turnaround would entirely be within that bulb. And in order to meet that requirement, we had to show that we could do the 62.5-foot bulb. So we have done that, and so I am formally requesting a withdrawal of that particular waiver.
Okay.
Okay? And I will say, and I'll be honest, I don't know what written correspondence was submitted, but Mr. Waterman, when he gets a chance to talk, I'm sure he can tell you that we did receive full support of the T-turnaround, use of the T-turnaround from the fire department, provided we made sure that we provided the full radius of the turnaround. We did provide a plan, sort of an aerial plan, giving you an indication of the distance to our rear, our abutters to the rear, who were here at the last meeting and had concerns about the impacts that this subdivision would have on their property. I'll remind the board that under any scenario, the proposed houses would be set well off the rear property line, because they can be, but more importantly, you'll recall there's a 50-foot easement, 80-foot easement across the back of the property, which provides a natural setback from the thing. Matt, if I recall, that plan showed a 90?
Yeah, it was about 95 feet.
About 95 feet from the back of our deepest home to the abutter's property in the back, so.
I have that one here.
Okay, thank you.
And then another 146 to their house.
And then, not only is there 95 feet to the property line, but then there's another 146 feet to their property. So there's well in excess of 200-foot buffer, vegetated buffer, and significantly more than that in distance, closer to 248, 238. I'm at the point where I can either read or see the plan. I can't do both, so.
Welcome to old age.
Yeah, I must admit that. So, we also did provide you a picture of a duplex showing the architectural styling that my client would like to employ. It's just a photograph, but it's the picture of what they want to build. It shows a 2.5-story duplex, unlike the duplexes being built down the street. We can guarantee that these are 2.5 stories. It's a craftsman style architecture.
Okay.
And
That's a duplex, huh?
Yeah, it'll essentially be a matching.
Okay, gotcha.
And as you can see, the building has a variety of exterior features and materials. You'll see that it is a combination of both brick and clapboard. And that, along with the many extensions and let me make sure I use the right terms. Here, there's extensions, and there's also dormers, and, we've broken up the face of the building so as to really address the issue of massing and scaling. And of course, this building does conform to all of your building requirements as well. So, the last thing we've done, and I sort of jumped the gun a little, is I did explain to you that we are withdrawing one of our waivers, which leaves us with only 3 waivers. And I know the board was at least initially inclined not to consider the waivers. But the truth is, we can build it without the waivers. But the waivers actually go to many of the questions and concerns that the neighbors had, and I know this board has in developing property, and that is impacts from the development to abutting neighbors. With the waivers we've asked for, and I'll remind you that the 3 remaining waivers are for minimum outside diameter of the roadway pavement within the turnaround shall be 108 feet. And essentially, we're providing a turnaround, a T-turnaround. That waiver helps to minimize impervious surfaces. There's going to be less paving, okay? And therefore, we're going to reduce the volume of stormwater that's generated. So that allows us to reduce the size of our stormwater management system and allows us to use LID technology to address stormwater. So we're reducing the amount of, it also allows for a reduction in the amount of area to be cleared. If you look at the plan with the fully conforming road, we've got to clear a significant, we need to clear significant more area, and it is going to push the houses that much further back, you know, into this back area where the neighbors are asking us not to go into. So, in fact, all 3 waivers result in a reduction in the area to be cleared. They allow us to provide greater buffers to our neighbors, and I will point out on this plan, we have added a significant amount of a buffer zone here, buffering along this property line, along the Groton Road Street, some big trees and some smaller trees here, trees all along this property line, along with the street trees that are required under your subdivision. And my client is willing to provide, even though this is, there's an existing tree line, some of the power easement has been cleared out, obviously.
Yeah, it's a little chewed up, yeah.
And they'll keep it cleared out.
It's chewed out, yeah, and they'll keep it cleared out. We have nothing to do about that. But then again, there is significant buffer on the neighbor's land, you know, for the house, it's 130 feet away. But my client is willing to bring in additional, more dense buffering along the back, just to add additional protection to the neighbors, or to the neighbors to the rear. So as I said, the waivers, the turnaround, the elimination of a sidewalk, and the use of the bituminous curb is going to allow us to reduce the total area to be cleared. It's going to allow for greater buffers. It's going to reduce impervious surfaces. It's going to reduce the stormwater controls needed, and allow us to use methodologies consistent with low-impact development to address stormwater. And most importantly, the waivers will allow us to keep the road private, so that there will not be a burden on the town in having to, you know, maintain and plow another road. So we've proven that we can build this without the waivers. So if the board truly doesn't agree with me that the waivers we're asking for are not necessarily to, you know, save money, or that we're asking, as some people have implied, a favor from the town, there are legitimate basis for those waivers. You've seen it, you've granted them in the past, but in this particular site, where the neighbors are concerned about total impact and how much we have to clear and how much we're going to have for impervious. And again, they keep pointing, well, we want this to be consistent with the neighborhood in general, the character of the neighborhood. Well, I think that was meant to say consistent with the neighborhood behind us, because as we know, the immediate neighborhood on Route 40 is industrial, commercial, housing, multifamily housing. So by allowing us the waivers and allowing us to minimize the amount of pavement we have to show, I mean, can you imagine the difference between having what looks like a a common driveway with a T-turnaround that meets all your fire and safety versus having a full-width subdivision road with a paved cul-de-sac that is over 100 feet around. That's going to have an impact on the neighbors. That's going to have an impact on what this looks like. So I would ask the board to consider the impact that will be diminished if you consider the waivers. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have in terms of details on the basis for the waivers. We did provide you a written justification for each.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they all speak to reducing pavement, reducing clearing, and reducing impact. So they are well thought through and, in my opinion, important. But again, if the board doesn't want to grant them, we can build the conventional road to full standards.
Okay. Gotcha.
So if we build it, so you mentioned if you do build, if we don't agree with the waivers, you're gonna build it, and then you're gonna make it a public road.
Well, if you're,
So that- 'cause you mentioned it
yeah,
tonight.
please don't take that as a threat.
No,
Just
no,
take
I'm
it
just
as a
trying to get-
legal, the legal situation my client would be put in. The reason, we want to do a private road is so we can,
Right, no, I
Keep
agree.
it small.
But,
So
but
I'm just trying to get
boy,
an understanding of it. So
Yeah.
if we approve the waivers, it stays
it will
private.
stay private.
It has
If we
to.
do not
Forever.
approve the waivers, it'll be compliant with the town's roads.
I'd rather look at it that if we have to build a fully conforming roadway,
Yep.
then, it wouldn't make sense not to submit it for,
No, I agree with that.
and because
I'm just
it
trying to
also
make sure we're
takes,
clear.
it'll take the pressure off the homeowners, right?
Absolutely.
They won't have to maintain their private road.
That's
They'll-
right.
They'll be like most of the Chelmsford residents in the town will do it. But yeah, please, don't take it as a threat.
It's not a threat.
Because my client has said he's happy to meet the rules and regulations. But he thought, and we thought in designing this, that let's try and minimize the pavement, let's minimize the impact, let's minimize how much of this lot we need to clear. Matt, do you know offhand the difference in clearing depth? No? But it's significant.
How much have you cleared already of the property?
We've cleaned the property up. They haven't cut it, have they cut trees out in the back? No, I don't think they've cut trees. I know they cleaned up the front, and they cut some stuff in the front. They got rid of all the piles of rocks and all the stuff. But if we are to build the fully conforming road, I do know we will need to go back and cut trees in the back.
Yeah, just, yeah.
You're not
Okay.
proposing curbing though, right?
We're proposing the use of bituminous curbing.
Correct.
Bitconk.
Yeah, we're gonna have curbing. We need it for our drainage.
Granite curbing.
We're asking for a waiver from the granite curbing. Yeah.
I'm not inclined on that.
Okay, now, that cover you?
Yes, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions the board
Well,
has.
let me run it around, see if the board has any questions. This is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to a public comment and see where we go. Anybody?
I got a couple of questions that I.
Fire away.
Just, looking at the drawings, on the dimensional chart, I don't know if the engineer could speak to this. Even for the subdivisions, you're still gonna meet the dimensional requirements of Lot 1 and Lot 2.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the depth you have as Lot 1? Because on the drawings, it shows 100 feet. So in Lot 1, the first lot,
Yep.
the depth, so it's not going, so the depth is going north to south, which is up on the page from the top to the bottom, because you now change the direction of the lot. Yep. And if you look at drawing C1, you have a dimensional that has a line of 39 feet plus 60 feet and change.
C1?
Drawing C1, that's the only dimension that has for Lot 1. So I'm just trying to figure out how you get to the 125 requirement through, horizontally through the lot.
Matt, sorry.
This is the one where it's not defined, and so we were going through here. This is just dimensions for an easement. And we were measuring the depth of the lot at its greatest point, which would be the maximum depth, which is measured just.
You have to go from front to back.
Yeah, and the front for this lot goes from here to here. And so we were picking the greatest depth. This is a shallower depth.
No, I see that, so I'm asking you for where's that 125 greater
It's
than?
measured from the midpoint of this.
And what is that, what's that dimension?
That's the dimension,
It's not on anywhere on the drawings that I can see.
On your chart right here?
It's on the chart, because it meets the chart. It says on his chart that he's sitting at 133 feet.
that's correct.
And you can scale that off this drawing at 133?
I don't have scaled plans.
No, I'm just saying,
Not
the
scaled.
scales are here. I'm just questioning you. That's the,
Yeah, no, and that's, the measurement is taken at its greatest point, which is going across from the depth
Okay.
here.
Is that how it's supposed to be
Yeah,
doing?
looks-
Are they supposed to do it that way? Nice, we
You want me to read the lot depth definition?
Yeah.
What do you have in mind?
Evan, do you think it meets the lot depth?
I would be.
Yeah, I mean,
Where was that?
Because I would have thought it would have to go,
no, it's definitely not from Groton Road.
no, I understand that. So it turned, so it should be parallel to the roadway.
Correct.
The proposed roadway.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, the driveway is 26 feet. What's the width of the house from front to back?
35.
70.
So you got 26.
Oh, wait a minute, 43. Yeah.
26 plus 43, and then you got these 30, between 35 and 27.
Yeah, it's about 100.
All I'm asking is they have to hit 125.
Right, so what I can tell you is, the building commissioner, this is one of the other provisions in the zoning bylaw that the building commissioner takes a very close look at. So under subdivision, the board is tasked with primarily making sure that the infrastructure to the lots is adequate.
Yep,
And then you're obviously looking at frontage and lot area.
yep. And depth and width.
You're not, you can, which is what you're doing.
But it's in the.
What I'm saying
requirements.
is that under subdivision, if you didn't, and one you're legally not required to, if you didn't do that, the building commissioner is legally
Yeah,
required to do
catch it,
that,
To look at it,
if and when a building permit is issued.
right.
But that's the reason why we're going with a smaller road. That is the reason.
No, because they have.
Because if
they have
if that
the
road
adequate-
gets bigger or not,
Right of way. See, the right of way is still 40 feet.
Right.
So they're not reducing the right of way.
And it's a lane, right?
They're just
That's not a
reducing the
waiver we've
pavement.
asked for. We're meeting your
But
requirements.
you see what I'm saying?
for
They're not manipulating the width of
I
the
just
right
don't
of
so
way.
that,
So-
if they were to put in a legal, street legal road, it would go the other way then, across the way. It would get wider the other way,
The pavement would get wider, but they're not the right of way.
away from the housing on that.
Likely.
No, sir, I think.
Property lines stay the
this-
same, but the
this
road
40
Yeah, I'm just
foot
looking at
wide
property line.
right-of-way is your requirement.
Okay.
We weren't asking to reduce that.
All right.
What we were asking to reduce was, one of the waivers was to allow us to use the T-turnaround, which the fire department has said they're comfortable with. The other one was a reduction of eliminating of the sidewalk, and the third one was the waiver of the curb, height of curb. So, yeah, we haven't asked for any. So if we build the fully conforming road, or if we build the one with waivers, this doesn't change.
Okay.
So it doesn't make the lot thinner or wider if we build the conforming road. And Mr. Walsh, I think we could certainly provide you a scaled plan with those two direct
I mean, I can get it on the other lot, and I can get the width on this one, I just can't get the depth.
Right, it's because.
It's
you
not
know,
shown.
We're coming at an angle like that.
Yeah, and the question is, Evan, is that angle legitimate?
Yeah, so
Can you have the depth at a different angle than the width?
I'll just tell you what the definition reads.
Okay.
It says the mean distance from the street line of the lot to its opposite rear line measured in a general direction of the side lines of the lot. So like many zoning provisions, lot shape and lot depth,
Yep.
it's at the interpretation of the building commissioner.
So it would be the same angle of the lot line on the side lot line.
In the general direction of the side lot lines.
Right, so.
If you do that, I think it's longer though, Mike.
Right.
So if you take it from the end of the radius that goes into the turn there and go straight back along the Groton Road, parallel to Groton Road.
So you can handle
I
this.
think it's actually going to be longer.
You can handle this in a couple ways.
Tell me it's
You
longer.
you can require a dimension plan as a condition of approval. You can obviously continue until you get that dimension plan. Or you could put a notation on an approval, basically giving the building commissioner a heads up to verify.
Okay.
It's a lot easier.
I like to see it.
If it turns out that the plan you approve, creating these lots, cannot comply, they have to come back, or they have to seek zoning relief.
Okay. The other question I have, Doug, was with the engineer. So with the home that's on septic, would you be putting in dry sewer line, unused, from the building to the street for a future connection?
As it's designed right now, we are not putting in any dry
Are we doing that across the board? I know we've done that in
We have
different
not
places.
been.
Okay.
No.
Well, we didn't have to have this new
I'm not
Title
entirely happy
V.
with that, because I think we probably should be.
We should be doing
Because
that. But it
eventually-
protects the
But in fact, that has
buyer.
not been it's not been
Yeah,
what we've done on
but the Board of
prior
Health has actually stated that they won't require these septic systems
Yeah.
to attach, so
So they
I
won't-
think it would be futile of us to require that extra cost.
Okay.
It protects it.
And then,
Item in there,
the stormwater, you talked about stormwater. Has that study been done, the plan? With the
Oh,
complete-
yeah, it's been reviewed by
Okay.
engineering.
Yeah.
It
By
has,
engineering.
it's been accepted?
Your town engineer is online, Anthony Rapucci is on Zoom, if you have any specific questions. There should be a letter.
Well, the only questions I see is,
Yeah,
it's a
do
long
we have-
roadway.
we have
We have
letters that ought to
letters,
be-
It's a
yeah,
long
we have
roadway with
letters
just two
before we
catch
open
basins
this
at
to
the
the
end.
public, we do have
So,
letters.
the water's going into Groton Road, too. On a heavy, heavy rain, it's coming. So, that's just my opinion, but, and then the last question I have is on the rendering, and then, I mean, I'm sorry I'm answering all these questions, but
That's okay.
that picture is right on the website of the architect. So is that exactly what you're gonna build? Because there's many other ones there.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to modify it a little to accommodate the two-family,
Okay,
but that is the architectural
So that's the style.
design and materials.
okay.
So it'd be
So we're
like
gonna-
the mirror image of that beside
You're
it?
doing
Yeah,
tie
that's
into
what the design
families.
is, yes.
He's from New Jersey, this guy.
Yeah,
So the architect's in New Jersey.
That looks good.
yeah, it doesn't look New England at
So
all.
we can tie this picture to any decision.
Wait, hold on. This is a subdivision approval,
I
guys.
don't
That's
know,
not
but you
what we
threw it out
approved.
there as, for us to make a decision on.
No, you asked us to provide you some information of
On
what the
what it might look
client is
like.
thinking about building.
I agree.
So we've provided that, but whether or not you like that building
You're not
or
gonna,
that
you're not gonna build
design
this in North
is-
Chelmsford on Route 40.
Is total, well,
That's not gonna be built. This is a
Okay, so we
multi-million
can't
dollar-
imagine you building
if
that
you wanna know
on
the truth,
Chelmsford and
I
Newport.
said to my client, that is way too much building.
That's
in
way
terms
too
of,
much.
You know.
And you're gonna put duplex in this thing, and a townhouse?
And he said,
We're not
I
doing,
want to build a nice place, and that's what I'm gonna do.
that would be
But
awesome
with all due
on Route
res-
40.
Well, I
As a single family.
I agree,
Yeah, I
that would be
suggest-
awesome.
Just,
Without granite
ju-
curb.
just to clarify, subdivision regulation does not provide the
It's
board
been
with any.
presented to us
Agreed,
as-
Yeah, this
because you asked.
We have no say over the architecture.
So if the board, as you said, if the board wanted to inquire if the applicant would be amenable to a condition, you can certainly do that.
Okay.
But generally speaking,
No.
subdivision does not
Right.
condition
But it was
the look of the
presented
building.
in front
It
of
was
us.
presented,
Yeah,
as,
as
hey,
like a
this is
fact.
what we
It was
want to do.
presented
The way he
as a
presented it was,
courtesy
this is
of
what we are
you
putting in.
asked.
Okay, no,
That
I
was
agree
a
with that.
fact.
And I gave that to you.
I thank you. This is beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I had the
And I
wouldn't
discussion
mind
with my
listening.
client that personally I thought that was a little over the top.
It's beautiful,
Can't wait to see
He
it.
says he wants to build something that he,
Okay,
which would be awesome. That would be great.
now let's see how it does.
So I'm sorry, that's all I have for questions. Someone else have
Okay.
questions?
All right, this is a public hearing, and I think the
Do you
moment
want
has come.
department letters?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'll be
Department.
perfectly happy not to read
No,
them,
go
but, you
ahead.
know. Let's go to it. All right. Fire Prevention Office. Dear members of the board, the Fire Prevention Office offers the following comments regarding the proposal for subdivision and private way construction at 264 Groton Road. The developer will provide a fire hydrant on the corner of Groton Road and the proposed roadway. The fire department access and turnaround that is proposed is acceptable. The T-type turnaround shall be maintained at all times and shall be kept clear of snow or other obstructions. The overhead clearance for the turnaround shall be maintained at 13 feet 6 inches or greater. The proposed turnaround allows for fire apparatus to stay within the right-of-way to make a reversing maneuver. The applicant shall contact the office of the fire chief and submit 3 possible names for the proposed roadway. Once a street name is established, the applicant must apply to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for house addresses through its coordinator, Town Clerk Trish Zuris. This office would approve of these plans as proposed and ask the board to make this letter a part of their approval process. Respectfully submitted, Danielle Katsoufis. Next letter. Thank you, Evan. From the Board of Health Planning Board, this letter is regarding the revised plans for the proposed definitive subdivision at 264 Groton Road. This subdivision, which would require an on-site septic system, must meet Title V regulations pursuant to 310 CMR 15.00 septic systems, along with the Health Department's application process. In addition, prior to the demolition of the existing dwelling at 264 Groton Road, the Health Department will need to receive an asbestos abatement report and a pest control report. Once both reports are reviewed and accepted, the Health Department will approve the demolition of this dwelling. Respectfully, Donna Greenwood. The next one is from the Building Commissioner. Zoning dimensional requirement. Dear Sir, Madam, in the event that the Planning Board approves of your application for the subdivision, please be advised that such project needs to meet the State of Massachusetts Building Code, the Energy Stretch Code, ADA compliance, 521 CMR in necessary, and the Town of Chelmsford dimensional requirement as per the bylaws. Thank you. Respectfully, Jose Negron. The next one is from Chelmsford Water, no comments. Police, no comments. DPW and Engineering, no comments.
Anything from North Chelmsford Water? Because this is North Chelmsford.
They had submitted comments initially,
They did? Okay.
and we addressed them.
This is being fed down Route 40.
Yeah,
Okay, well, it says from Chelmsford Water. It didn't say which one, but I can't imagine why we would ask the wrong water
We
department.
got comments from both.
Oh, okay, okay.
Good. All right,
That's it.
thank you. Thank you very
Now you
much.
can do open
All
to
right,
comments.
we have a public hearing. Do we have, okay. Virginia would like to say a few words.
Thank you. My name's Virginia Crocker Timmons. My husband, Mark Timmons, and I are here. We live at 28 Lovett Lane, and we are direct abutters to this development. I want to thank you for the updates provided this evening, and I have a letter from my attorney that I'd like to pass out to the board.
Might you have a copy for us?
Yeah, Tim's not here, so.
I don't know if it comes around.
I'll give you one.
Thank you.
I'll give you this one when I'm done with it if you need it.
I got mine by email.
Is there an extra one? Thank you, Evan. So I won't read through the whole thing, but I will just point out some of the major points in it. First, if you look at paragraph A at the bottom of page 1, A3. The subdivision bylaws, specifically section 202-12E, require that any subdivision be in compliance with the zoning bylaw. And in that, it says that the planning board can ensure compliance to the zoning bylaw in the division of such land into lots that shall comply with the town zoning bylaw then in effect or with variance granted by the Board of Appeals. So our interpretation of that is that you have the authority and the responsibility under the subdivision bylaws to ensure that once the subdivision is approved, that the resulting lots comply with the zoning bylaws. So I'm having a hard time with what I'm hearing, that it's up to the building commissioner to make sure that that happens afterwards. And if I jump down to, on page 2, paragraph B1, this goes back to the questions that Mr. Walsh was making. And I would also thank you for asking for a full dimensional layout that verifies that the depth of the lot is what they say it is. I have a hard time finding where 132 feet is. I will let you know that I have a colleague who is a professional licensed surveyor, and what that person told me is consistent with what Evan said, that depth is typically measured along the entirety of the lot, not at a single point. So when Evan said that the definition is the mean distance is not a single point. To me, that's an average distance. So my request to the planning board is get some real legal advice on how depth is measured. We don't have a licensed surveyor in the town of Chelmsford anymore, so if you need to ask for an independent surveyor's opinion, please do that. But I don't think that depth is measured at a single point. And my interpretation of the subdivision bylaw is that you don't have to approve a subdivision if the land resulting in the two lots don't comply with the full dimensional requirements for an RC zone. You don't have to leave that up to the building inspector later on. So I think that's just a poor practice if that's what we do. I'm going to pop back up to paragraph 4 on page 2. The documents that you guys are looking at tonight, and one of them that I saw on the screen behind me, have never even been posted on a public agenda. So that to me is tragic. You're having a public hearing, and yet the public doesn't have access to the documents that you're looking at.
Virginia, I totally agree. And this has been happening a lot, and I think we've heard multiple complaints along the line from various other public comments. And I would like to propose the board look at this as a procedure, and if we do not have if the documents come in late, then
We don't have the hearing.
Then we don't have the hearing.
Our documents didn't come in late.
So I mean, I just want to tell you that I'm expending my personal time, my attorney's time, to review things that are old.
No, Virginia,
And-
you're
and
not the
it's-
only one.
No,
This is
but-
multiple
and
public hearings.
And I hope that you don't close the public hearing tonight,
Yeah.
because we have not had valid notice, okay? And it just happens to be me watching this, but there's a whole list of abutters that were notified, and the documents are not being provided in a timely manner.
Yep, no, this is not the,
Or
this
at
is not
all.
the only public hearing for the only project. It's been other projects that the similar complaints have come
Right.
through. So I kind of wholeheartedly agree.
Thank you. If I go back to B1B, I appreciate that we have the easement, and that really ensures the setbacks in terms of the distance to our property line. I would also just like to remind the board that I haven't seen like the actual distance to the easement, but National Grid requires at least 20 feet. So that might just be something you want to keep an eye on, or ask for those distances to be provided. And that's a safety reason. They don't want people working on homes after they're built or while they're being built and having ladders or other things falling into the wires. And I talked to National Grid directly, If you guys need it, you can talk to them directly too, but they told me in no uncertain terms they want 20 feet. At the top of page 2, item 2A, so on sheet C3, in the notes at paragraph 4, it states that the parcel is not located within the 100-year floodplain. But if you look on those same plan notes on paragraph 6 in the first page, and then also on the second page of the definitive plan, it says that it is located in the 100-year floodplain. So I would ask that either you get verification or ask the applicant to verify, is it or is it not? There seems to be some inconsistencies there. I heard on item B at the top of that same page, I heard tonight that the storm management report is complete. If it is, that has not been provided to the public. I brought this up at the last public hearing, that appendices A, B, C, and D in that stormwater management report are all blank. And yet DPW is commenting on that. There used to be a time when DPW would not comment until they had the full documents in hand. So my question to you is that acceptable to you as a board, that we've got departmental reviews and applicants saying, we're ready to go with incomplete documents? And if that document is complete, then why hasn't it been provided to the public? Paragraph C at the top of page 3, if you look at the, this is just a comment about, there was a question raised about putting in dry sewer lines. If you go back and read the subdivision bylaws, section 202-15C, it talks about sewer lines and dry sewer lines, and it says the planning board shall not waive the provisions of this section without the written recommendation of the sewer commission that the construction of a sewer system within the subdivision is not feasible. So I would just ask, who is the authority to waive the dry sewer lines? Is it the Board of Health or is it someone else? And I would just ask that you please help confirm that. I'm going to skip the waivers because we didn't have the full information from tonight's packet, except that I would like to talk about the waiver request, paragraph 3B, the last sentence. There was somewhere else in the response letter from Land Tech where I think they said that they would put a change in the master deed with respect to, I think it might have been the stormwater management, that it would be done by the association. My request is that if their intent is that that roadway is going to be a private way, that you please also require that there be a limitation added in the master deed so that they can't come back later and ask the town to accept it as a public way. And put that as part of the deed if that's what they're proposing. And then just the last paragraph is just, again, we had no time. We didn't even have the correct documents to review, so I would ask that you not close the public hearing and make this a fair process for the entire public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I had, nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's in the DPW.
All right, is there anybody else
That was in that letter.
lined up? Okay, so we have no more in the queue for public hearing, at least not tonight. All right, so what do we want to do about some of these concerns? I think the request for the completed drawing makes good sense.
Yeah, showing the dimensional.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'd like to see that. And
I'd like clarification about the flood zone question.
yeah, it should be fairly easy to answer.
And
Yeah, it's not in the flood zone. I think it was a typographical error.
I can.
And we can certainly clarify
Yeah,
that.
clarify that for us. Then, what else was
You
I
can
gonna-
look at the GPS to clarify that, too.
Yeah, that's usually pretty good.
It's pretty fast.
It's an interesting point about board control of of what goes in there insofar as it must comply with zoning requirements, that could probably be handled as a condition, interestingly enough.
Well, I'm not approving anything unless I know that it complies with zoning, quite frankly.
Well, that's
And this is
fine,
why
nothing wrong with that.
It'd been nice
But
to
I'm-
have
but I'm
Parvati
saying
on the phone, 'cause-
that can always,
But what would you say that wouldn't, zone?
You do it all the time, which is why when we approve
yeah.
site plans, we do it with a notation that there is no determination to zoning.
This is a
We do
subdivision.
that on site plans.
We do it on
We
site
could do
plans
quite
all the
reverse
time.
here.
That's right.
Could
But this is
reverse
a
it here.
subdivision.
Is it the same for A&Rs and subdivisions with regards to that? I thought that was for A&Rs.
It is.
Okay, that's interesting on
point
the
is we do it all
stormwater
the
management.
time.
Are those appendices blank for a reason? I mean, maybe there wasn't anything in there, but we ought to get that clarified at least.
I'll work with the.
Yeah, it may
with
very well be
the
that there just
applicant.
wasn't any data for those, but let's find out.
Could have been, my guess is they've either electronically or hard
Okay.
copy submitted everything.
Okay, 'cause where I come from, when you do that, you always put, this page intentionally left blank,
That's right.
which is,
I
I've always
also-
thought was a little interesting, but.
I'm dissatisfied with the timeliness of the provision of documentation to us, to the public, to everyone. I mean, I think it's really not fair to the neighbors and to the abutters to not have the full information and not have time to review the information before we're discussing it.
I agree. And I think it needs to,
Yeah,
like,
and-
stop across the, across the board.
Deidre also.
Yeah,
You know, I've
we've
been
bumped
on
into
this
this
board
before.
for what, 10-plus
So what do we
years?
do
And
to
this has been
prevent this from
an
happening?
issue
Yeah.
for 10-plus years.
It has or has not?
That's for
It
a
has.
work
All
session.
right, well, then we need to stop
It
it. What do we
has.
need to do?
Getting late.
I thought we had, like, kind of an unwritten agreement that it was like, if it wasn't in by noon time or midday
Yeah.
Friday.
We were gonna shelve it.
Yeah.
Friday.
you didn't see
It,
it,
That kinda
it wouldn't
slid.
come in,
it wouldn't be reviewed.
yeah.
But I'm not, this may be a local
all right.
information distribution problem, not necessarily a problem with proponents. So I don't think we should,
Well, if it's
they
asked, did the
have
proponents have
requirements for
everything in by
timely
Friday?
filing, and I suspect that they often do.
Did you have everything submitted by Friday?
All of our submittals, materials were in by Friday. The only thing we submitted the first this week was the fire department had asked us not to seek a waiver,
Okay.
that they wouldn't support the waiver. So we just provided, as a courtesy to the board, a copy of the plan,
Yeah.
not showing that waiver. That's all. It wasn't a design change.
So why wasn't this, if they provided everything, why wasn't all of this?
Are we gonna discuss this tonight?
Well, I'm not sure it makes sense to discuss this tonight, because we've got other things we need to do.
There's been a theme throughout the entire meeting
Yeah,
on the multiple agendas,
Yeah.
topics tonight, talking about me and what I do.
that's not,
It's
Oh, no,
been
no,
been
this
quite
wasn't the point.
veiled,
This
okay?
wasn't,
We do our best. We try to do our best. The office is busy.
yeah.
If you want me to apologize, I'll apologize. But it's up to the board whether you want to continue or not. And
Well,
the
yeah.
fact you have a letter from an abutter who hired an attorney is just cause to continue. You don't need any other
I
reason.
agree
And I
with
think
Kevin.
that's-
Okay?
I agree
So
with
now,
Kevin.
now that an attorney's involved, my suggestion is you get your town council involved. It doesn't matter, you don't even need to go through and itemize the letter from the attorney.
Right.
Send it directly to council and let council advise you as to how to proceed.
Okay.
There's a variety of issues in there. For example,
Yeah.
not to belabor this, but the board historically has not questioned a licensed professional.
Right. It's very true.
Okay, and you're gonna have to get council's advice as to how you go about doing that, if at all.
Which licensed professional?
You have a surveyor and
Okay.
a civil engineer stamping plans verifying that they comply.
Yeah.
So you ask a question, they're gonna show the dimension.
Right, that's all we need.
No, well, you have
For
a
that.
letter, you have a letter from an attorney now suggesting that it needs to be like independently reviewed or verified. There is no surveyor in the town of Chelmsford.
I know.
The law requires the building
funny.
commissioner to serve in that capacity. So I'm
Okay.
just saying, these are all new issues that my advice is you just ask council to figure out.
Well, I
what
think
to
we
do.
were gonna do that anyway, send the letter off to them.
Right, right.
I,
Okay,
yeah.
What's being introduced here is new ways of doing business that sound good, but aren't necessarily practical or legal. And that's why when I answer the questions, this is how the town has done it historically, and it's worked.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting it's the only way to do it, but that's how it's been done.
Well, I mean, I think it is, if it is supposed to be a mean of the.
We're not going to be able to figure that out here.
Right.
No, we can't do
And
that
that's the
tonight.
beauty of the
Can't.
process,
Right.
is that the planning board historically has relied on their professional staff to figure it out. If the Paul Haverty's on,
He's there right now?
Yep. Paul, you have something to say?
I didn't have something to say. I just wanted to remind you guys that I was still here. I'll be happy to take a look at the letter from the attorney.
That would be good.
I just don't think there's anything to belabor more at this point.
No, I don't think
As soon as an
there is.
abutter hires an
Wait, I have a
attorney,
question.
Can I ask you one
I
question?
think you
of
engage
the
your
eng-
attorney.
I just want to ask a question of the engineer. So on the right-of-way of the circle, if you leave that there, can you put any plantings in that right-of-way? Like trees and stuff? Or is that right-of-way there, if you do the T, right, we approve the T, and you have the right-of-way, though, sitting there, the big circle on these front lawns of the, that's there for a truck to turn if they need to.
Right.
So you can't put any plantings in that.
Well, I think.
Can you or can you not?
In the T turnaround or in the bulb?
In the bulb, can you put any,
No.
any plantings
Well,
of trees or?
it's usually
I don't know.
grassed and
That's what I
and
would've figured,
landscaped,
yeah.
put a couple trees, but you don't want to put a lot of trees in there because if there is ever an issue, the town has the right to tell us, build the
Okay.
circle.
That's what I was just trying to
So,
figure
yeah,
out.
we could certainly not put any structures or anything permanent. But usually what you see is these are landscaped and grassed.
No, I agree with that.
So
I just- there is a couple of trees that are in here.
Yep.
And bushes and stuff. I just didn't know.
Yep.
If the fire department allows that in that bulb.
Yes.
Or it's just grass.
Yes, they do.
Yes, grass.
Typically, we see like restrictions in other towns where they prohibit like retaining walls or something more formal structure.
Again, no structures, but,
Because the intent is for a truck to drive in that area if they need
Well, then,
it.
oh, no, no, no,
No.
no.
No?
No.
What's
We
the
have to
intent?
show
They
that
don't
the
have
T
to.
turnaround is designed, allows them to turn every way with their biggest truck
Yeah.
on the T turnaround. They're not assuming that although the bulb is shown on the plan and approved, and that is part of the right-of-way, it's not part of the lots, we've never been required to, leave it clear, because if they were gonna make us leave it clear, then they'd make us build the bulb, you know what I mean?
Pave it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that we definitely cannot put anything structure, nothing permanent like a wall, but we've never had a problem. I mean, most towns like the fact that you make it look like grass and trees so that it,
Yeah, it's just
As
basically an
pavement.
extension of the yards.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
don't understand why
But-
they do it then. Why do they have it right away as a bulb if it's never gonna be used for anything?
Because if you
Why wouldn't they
actually,
just wave it
It-
and put it, give them a T, and then the property goes right up to that?
You could do,
Because-
they could request that and you could approve it, but to Paul's point, once you reduce the right-of-way, at 40 feet, you begin to manipulate the area of the property that can be used for lot area.
The other thing too is we have to show the conforming bulb or conforming with a waiver, because that is also part of what creates the frontage for the lot.
No, I get that.
If you measured it on the T turnaround, I don't know if it
What you
would.
get, yeah.
What you'd get.
All right,
But I just want to say one thing. There has been a lot of questions here regarding process, and listen, it was abundantly clear to me that there is a lot of hostility based on the applicant and, I guess, his attorney. But, my client has done everything to meet your rules and regulations. We have submitted material in advance. I will admit, we did submit that one plan earlier this week, but again, that was just as a courtesy to show the board that we could meet, we could get rid of that waiver, and which was what the fire department suggested we do. Everything else has been timely submitted, and I know it's been posted. I think we're looking just at this plan that we submitted earlier this week. But I'm really concerned that at least some of our butters and obviously one of your selectmen is trying to hold us to a very different standard And it's been suggested that we haven't submitted the materials to allow for due process of our abutters. But I'm really concerned to the fact that this letter that was produced and handed to you here tonight has obviously been submitted via email directly to this board. And where does that protect my client's due process rights and his right to a fair consideration of his application? Something's not right here, guys, when people are sending these letters directly to board members.
This is the first I've seen it, so.
Well, Mr. Shanahan just said, oh, no, I already got that by email.
Okay.
So, you know, we all want to abide by the rules and the regulations. We want to be fair and protect everyone's due process. I'd suggest that my client's entitled to that as well.
Well, do you have a list of questions that you might be able to answer here? Some of which have been brought up, and of course, I think Paul Haverty is going to have a look.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes, please.
I am the one
Yeah.
who emailed the letter. I emailed it to the planning board right before this meeting.
Okay, so I just haven't seen it.
Because this is a public hearing where I speak to the board. So I emailed that letter, and I said, I am bringing a copy of this to the meeting this evening. That's all that happened.
That's perfectly reasonable.
There is nothing in that letter that suggests changing your process. The comment about the, how the depth is measured and getting confirmation of that was my comment. Okay, the letter simply raises the question of, does the lot, one, meet the zoning bylaw dimensional requirements? And I raised that question at the last meeting, and that, to me, it was not answered satisfactorily. So I raised it again, and my attorney raised it again in this letter. And to insinuate that I am here in my capacity as a select board member is downright unprofessional. I have never done, I have asked Evan to communicate with me on my home email as an abutter and a resident. I have not engaged with town council or anyone else except this planning board and Evan.
Yep, reasonable enough.
And my comment about none of the documents being available to the public, I didn't say that the applicant didn't provide the documents. Okay, it's just a fact. We did not have the documents when we reviewed and when my attorney drafted that letter. And in fact, I said I'm going to skip over the waiver part because I didn't have a full set of information when we wrote that. And I do appreciate the updates that have been provided this evening. The hostility and the comments that were brought up at the last public hearing, I think if you go back and watch that, it wasn't me. I actually said that Mr. DeFelice was very kind and accommodated a meeting with me. Okay, but that communication dropped. It was my hope that we would be here and I would be saying, as an abutter, we're all set.
Yeah.
Okay, but the communication dropped and now I'm going through the process. And all I'm asking is that that be a fair and due process because we're not getting the information when you are. And I'm not, none of the questions I raised in that letter are attacking the applicant. The stormwater management plan has blank appendices. That is a statement of fact. And all I'm asking is please cross the i's and dot the t's and look at it. And if it all complies and it's compliant with the bylaws and they're making accommodations to try to reduce impact, peace. But all I am asking is do your due diligence. That's it. And I am not trying to wave any kind of a heavy hammer because of my elected position. That would be unethical, and I resent the comment. And that I do act hostile towards.
I actually take offense as well. There was no other emails or letters being sent. I was just stating that I received the email with what she had sent, just to make that clear.
At 6:45 tonight. That's when we got the email.
Okay,
That's what
so I
got.
haven't even seen it
Exactly.
yet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which means we haven't seen it.
Just found it.
Right.
Okay, well, in any case, we have the letter, which is as good. We'll get a copy of this to Paul. Why don't we have his analysis of it? I think you probably have enough from us to gather a couple of answers to a couple of questions that have shown up. I think they're pretty clear. The letter is nicely drafted. My old friend Peter Lawler. I wonder how he's doing. Okay. So with that said, I guess we're going to want to
Continue the public hearing.
Continue.
But we shouldn't continue this out terribly far. We should be able to get all of this answered within the next 2 weeks, I would think. Do you have any time constraints or?
When is the next meeting?
Yeah, that's going to be a job and a half. That's going to be quite the
14
meeting.
days from now.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy?
No, here.
What do we have on that? I mean, we obviously have the
You got
River Neck project.
You got River Neck,
Yeah.
270 Billerica Road decision, and the zoning public hearing. Meeting starts at 6:30,
All right.
What date is that?
February 22nd,
What's the March meeting?
March 8th.
All right, let's try to do this on
Yeah, the
February
26th.
26th. We have added an extra half an hour at the front, but I think if the questions get fairly clearly answered, I don't think there's a lot that will need further discussion, and I hope it's the same with the draft decision. Okay, motion to,
Motion to continue the public meeting on 264 Groton Road to February 22nd.
okay,
Second.
I'll second that.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, consider it done.
Thank you for your time and.
Okay, and, yep.
Evan, is this what he's talking about? A lot of blank pages.
Okay,
Approval of minutes?
Why are they blank?
May have been like a supplemental.
now, we've had a request to continue uh, 250 Apollo Drive. We'll need a motion
To March 8th.
to March 8th. We'll need a motion for that.
Move to continue Apollo Drive to March 8th.
Second.
Motion second, in favor? Aye.
I won't be
Okay.
here.
Aye.
All right, we have one set of meeting minutes. This is January 11th.
Spelled my name wrong.
On the first or the second?
It's always spelled right.
Yeah.
It's been easy, right? It's my minutes.
Pretty good.
Make a motion to approve the minutes? Is
Yeah.
that what you're looking for?
Yep.
Is that what we're waiting for? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second
of-
that.
Moved, seconded, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I guess, good, thanks, Tim. All right, we're caught up to date on the minutes. We have our two meeting dates, remembering that the next one, the 22nd, is at 6:30, is that correct?
6:30. Thank you for reminding me.
You don't forget that one. And I think, okay, we did have this one item on board policy, I think it's worth bringing up. I had suggested that just as a group, when we want to engage the town council for board matters, that it might be a good idea for us to route all the requests through Evan to get to the board, and the responses can come to us the same way. That way, I think we'll all be on the same page. I know I've been guilty a couple of times of not doing this, and I know others have too. What do people think?
For clarification, are you saying that if it comes up in our
Public meeting.
doing, in our discussion, that we have a question for Paul?
No,
That we
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying,
Oh.
if you have a question for Paul,
Oh,
send it through the board.
And then you will forward our question to Paul. You're not going to
Yeah,
answer
we
it,
would-
like,
I would not forward it unless it was a request of a majority of the board.
Okay.
I do not forward individual requests. Granted,
Okay,
we've never
so then
had,
we-
this has never been an issue for the board.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
over 15 years. Everything has either been decided at a meeting,
Yeah, and that's the easy
or in
case.
between meetings, a board member emails the chair and copies staff, and then suggests, I think we need to engage counsel.
Okay, and if.
it's usually brought up at the next
Okay,
meeting.
if that were to happen,
So that always slows down the process, though.
well, it
Yeah,
does-
but I'm
But
just.
the problem is you're expending, when you
Oh, yeah, we
request
get it.
something of Paul, you are
It has
expending
to- In my
town.
opinion, it has to come from a
finances.
majority of the board. And I've said this to you repeatedly, just because one member says something or asks something, doesn't mean it's a directive to the applicant or to staff. It
right.
has to be a majority. That's why I.
Well, we can do this two ways. We can do it majority, or you can go through the board chair, either way.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't,
And
you'd
I'm
have to do it
perfect-
in person, right?
But you can't.
You can't do
No,
that on
doesn't have to be done in
email. You can't have a
person. We can put it by
discussion.
email.
you can do it by email, but I'd like to have, if I have a question, I think we should be, like, any board member should have a question, should be able to, get like,
Yeah, but it should go through.
Yeah, if you want to pay for
Yeah,
it.
okay, if
sending
that-
it
if we
to-
could do
I'll
it-
send it to Mike and say, can
Yeah,
you
Mike,
forward
Send it to
this?
me. Believe me, I'm going to forward, anything that isn't utterly absurd.
Right, like, I mean, if it's not.
And
like,
even
I'm
some of
asking-
those.
Questions should go through the chair anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just
fine.
Questions should go
send
through the
send them to
chair.
me, and that way, what we can do is I'll probably send the request to you with my
That's fine.
imprimatur
If
on
it
it.
goes through the chair,
And you
then
can
that's
take-
fine.
And you
Yep,
can take care of it.
absolutely. Then it's a
and
directive from the board.
You can send it out
Sure.
to everybody on the board, so we all know what the question is and what the answer is. And that's, as, in general, it's a better idea for information like that for the whole board to pass through Evan. There are some open meeting considerations and
There's
others.
also process
And process.
within the public hearing, the
Yeah.
applicant getting to hear and respond and engage. I mean, the best way to handle all of this is at the public meeting, at the public
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah, but in those cases where we can't,
Sure.
send it to me and I'll expedite it.
All right, as long as it gets
And,
forwarded.
and in a way that we all get copies.
All right, as long as an answer.
If that's good.
If there's a question about
Because,
something.
I mean, council can clarify this for you. My understanding is that when the board asks a question,
Right.
the applicant is responsible and has the obligation to provide the answer.
Yeah.
If you bifurcate that and you go directly to council.
Even if it's asking like a question on
If it's,
law.
if it's a legal question, but a lot of ours is procedural in nature.
Yeah.
Or asking a very specific question, like
Is-
some of the themes
Yeah.
that came up this evening.
Yeah.
Right, but like if it's a legal question,
Yeah, obviously got to ask that of council.
Yeah.
so that like, that
Yeah.
was a legal question.
Yeah, I mean,
That was a
my
legal question.
concern is not a
I just would
procedural one
prefer
so
that it
much
would
as
come
an
up during
informational
the
one.
hearing, so that the applicant can hear it while we all hear it,
Yeah.
and then the board can discuss it live.
Yeah.
There may be a board member at the table who's already asked that question
Knows the
before of
answer.
council.
Yeah,
Yes.
knows the answer, yeah. Anyway, that's, as a matter of practice, if we try that.
Okay, can
I
you
will-
forward my email to the attorney then?
Yeah, I will take care of it. Matter of fact, I forwarded, I believe I forwarded it to them anyway.
It's an HVAC.
Is it?
Yeah, the last one that Anita sent me that I forwarded to you.
I CC'd everybody.
Huh?
I CC'd everybody, I think. Didn't I?
I don't, I think you
that-
did,
Violates open meeting law.
or it can, potentially.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
That was
we've
a-
never
Can't
gotten
go-
into the weeds on
can't
this stuff with
CC
council,
everybody.
but the best advice is discuss it all, deliberate it all in a public session, and then make the requests at a
Right,
public
yeah,
session.
and when that doesn't happen,
Well, we don't.
what's our
we
procedure?
have
Okay,
attorneys
if
all
you follow
all
me.
the time.
And I don't have the
here,
answer
so
to
that's-
that.
I think the answer is, send it to the chair, I'll send it to you, you send it out to everybody
Tim for a
else.
reason. He's our leader.
And gather
And-
comments back.
And to the council. I mean, a lot of it won't need comments, it's just so that people know what's being asked. So we're all on the same page, that's all. Okay,
Are we to the point I can make another motion?
I sure hope so.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, well,
You're
shall we
giving us
argue
too
about
much
which second?
consideration.
All in favor?
She can have it?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I don't care.
Good, thanks, everybody. That was a long one.